Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is betrayed in the forest of death. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Dreadlord789 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The sound of fighting could be heard throughout the forest of death as genin teams fought to the death over something as small and insignificant as a scroll. Teenagers killed others in cold blood all so that they would be able to advance to the next round of this tournament of death. This is the cold hard truth of those who pursue the life of a shinobi. They were required to kill whom they were told to kill, seduce whom they were told to seduce, and even betray their own teammates if they were ordered to. Granted, there were those who would not take another's life just to get ahead in this cold reality. Uzumaki Naruto was one such boy. In the emotionless world of a shinobi, he was always the one that was able to bring a smile to people's face. He was always the first to intervene if someone was being picked on, and was always looking to make new friends. Due to his abnormally happy disposition, there were many who thought he would never survive in the bloodthirsty world of the shinobi, but time and again he proved them all wrong. Through every hardship he persevered, through every encounter he became stronger, and through every fight he changed people's hearts. The one question that no one could answer when it came to the young boy was why. Why was he always so determined? Why did he even want to be a shinobi? Why was he so ready to sacrifice his own happiness and well-being to help a complete stranger? The answer to all these questions could be explained by his childhood. His whole life was ruled by fear. The fear of being hurt. The fear of being neglected. The fear of being cast out like yesterday's garbage. And most importantly, the fear of being alone. These fears all culminated from what happened on the eve of his birth. Shortly after he was born, he was torn from his mother's arms and forced to carry a burden that would make his life a living hell as long as he would live. Without any choice, he was forced to harbor a malevolent being of chakra, the strongest of the 9 Biju, the Kyuubi. Not only would this simple event push him to the verge of suicide multiple times in his young life, but it would cause him to become the target to those who would seek to use Naruto's prisoner for their own twisted and sick plans. It is such a case where Naruto finds himself now. Naruto's arms were burning from strain and he is exhausted. He was doing everything in his power to save his best friend and rival Sasuke from being eaten from a massive snake. At the current moment, he had 2 kunai implanted in the snake's skull and was holding it off while Sasuke was recovering. Orochimaru, disguised as a genin, was just chuckling quietly, absolutely ecstatic that his plan was finally coming to fruition. "Come on, team! Are you telling me that is all you have left?" Sasuke was on a tree branch several feet from Naruto, cowering in fear. Not since the Uchiha massacre had he felt such powerful chakra signatures. He looked up at his blonde teammate with sweat rolling down his face. "Why are you fighting? We are just going to die. We can't do anything. He's just toying with us." Naruto pushed the massive snake back with a sudden burst of strength, and he soon had to steady himself before he fell off the tree branch. He walked up to Sasuke and slugged him in his jaw as hard as he could. Sasuke was jolted off his knees and fell onto the branch. Gripping his jaw, he looked up at Naruto. Naruto's usually blue eyes were blood red with a black slit going down the middle. His strange whisker-like birthmarks were much larger and more defined than normal, and his hand was balled in a fist, shaking with rage. "Lister here, you bastard. Give up if you want, die if you want. I don't give a shit anymore. I cannot and will not die here." Naruto turned around and jumped after Orochimaru, leaving Sasuke behind on the branch. Orochimaru was watching the show in front of him with amusement. "I didn't expect the Kyuubi's chakra to make itself known just yet, but this will save me many hours of physical and mental torture. Damn, that's the best part. Oh well, I guess I'd better get moving before people start snooping." Orochimaru dodged Naruto's kick to his head easily with a movement of his neck. He caught Naruto's shoulder and reared his arm back. With all of his force, he punched Naruto hard in the gut, forcing up anything he hadn't already digested. He let Naruto go limp in his hand as he held the back of his neck. With a smirk, he threw Naruto in the air and summoned a snake to swallow the blonde. When the snake unsummoned itself, Orochimaru turned to Sasuke, who was still shaking on the tree branch, and smirked. "Well, Sasuke-kun, as much fun as this whole ordeal has been, I have to leave. I have a lot of work to do, and I am just lightheaded with excitement." Orochimaru jumped towards Sasuke and lifted his head up so it was level with his. "Tell that old fool of a Hokage that his time of reckoning will soon be upon him, and I'll use Naruto to do it." In a swirl of leaves, Orochimaru left the 2 down genin, mentally preparing himself for the arduous task set before him. Naruto blinked his tired eyes several times as he slowly regained consciousness. "My head, why do I feel so woozy?" Naruto tried to rub his head, but he couldn't move his arms. "Why?" He tried to stand up in panic, but he couldn't move his legs either. "What the hell?" When he lifted his head up, he looked down and saw he was strapped to a metal table, But no matter how hard he struggled against his restraints, they stayed. The more he tried to flow chakra through his limbs to break the bindings, the tighter they got, and he started to feel lightheaded after a few seconds. TSK Naruto, don't use up too much of your chakra just yet, you're going to need it, trust me. Naruto whipped his head towards the familiar voice and saw a man that resembled the genin he fought in the forest. Who are you? Where am I? What do you want with me? The man just smirked. In the order you asked, I am Orochimaru, one of the Sannin. As to where you are, well, I would estimate you are about 500 meters underground, about 5 miles outside of Konoha. Your last question though, well, that one is a surprise. Naruto started struggling harder against his restraints, screaming for help and demanding to be let go. All his screams did was amuse the pale man and strain his voice. After a few minutes, a man with silver hair and a pair of glasses walked in and whispered something in Orochimaru's ears that made Orochimaru's grin stretch from ear to ear. Orochimaru walked up to the table Naruto was strapped down to. Well, my dear Naruto, my assistant just informed me that your little team managed to alert the Hokage about your abduction, so we are a little short on time. Fortunately, all the preparations are ready. Now the fun can finally begin. With a wave of his hand, he directed Naruto's attention to the far side of the wall. As Naruto looked across the room, he saw the wall begin to lower itself, and a strange array of large glass-holding tubes came into view. The tube on the far right held what looked like sand that seemed to swirl as if it had a mind of its own. The next tube held a large quantity of blue flames that stayed ignited without a source of fuel. The next tube held what looked like small chips of a shell of some sort that was suspended in water. The next tube had a large tuft of deep crimson-colored hair. The next tube had what looked like part of a very large hoof like one would see on a bull or a cow. The next tube held a pool of clear fluid-like residue like what was produced by a snail or a slug. The next tube had a chunk of brittle shell-like material resembling the exoskeleton that a bug would shed. The final tube had what looked like a large slab of squid. Naruto looked back and forth between Orochimaru and the strange tubes. Orochimaru just chuckled evilly and picked up a scalpel. Naruto's eyes widened in fear as images flashed through his mind at what the bizarre man was going to do to him. Now Naruto, try not to scream too loud. I don't want you to rip your vocal cords, I would prefer to be able to speak when I take over your body. For the next several hours, blood-curdling screams could be heard all throughout the underground lab. The alarms in Konoha were going wild as soon as Sasuke informed the Hokage of the strange encounter with the snake genin. It wasn't until Sarutobi heard Orochimaru's parting words that he called every available shinobi in Konoha to search. Even those who still harbored ill intentions towards the boy gave their all in locating his position. It would seem that even they understood the dangers of letting a man-man experiment on a Jinchuriki, especially if said man-man declared his intentions of burning Konoha to the ground. By direct order, the Chunin exams were postponed, and all the contestants, dead or alive, were gathered to be guarded from the clutches of Orochimaru. This was simply a cover so that more jounin could be used to search for Naruto, and everyone knew it, but there were still appearances that needed to be kept. Teams of 5 were sent out, each put together by Nara Shikaku himself with a Byakugan user on each team. There was simply no time to waste, and each minute that went by was another minute that Orochimaru had to tamper with Kyuubi's seal and risk setting it free once again. Little did anyone know that what Orochimaru was really doing was far more nefarious. By some perverse twist of fate, the person to discover Naruto's location was the person who had the most to lose if he died. By that same twist of fate, she was one of the only people who would have been able to find him, since her Byakugan was one of the only Byakugan strong enough to see that far underground to locate Naruto. Hinata was placed on a retrieval team with Itachi Kakashi, the Cat A and B member, the Tokubetsu Jounin Mitarashi Anko, and, as a strategist, Naro Shikamaru. Is that it's him? Kakashi-sensei. I found him. The entire party came to an abrupt halt as the cycloptic Jounin rushed to the Byakugan user. Hinata, where is he? She flinched and was tempted to stutter her response, but something told her now wasn't the time to be tongue-tied by some idiotic childhood habit. He is 1,400 meters northeast, about 600 meters underground. The entrance is hidden via genjutsu, and is disguised as a felled oak tree. From what I saw, there are no other chakra signatures in the compound. Kakashi nodded as he, Cat, and Anko dashed off to where the entrance was. As they ran off, Kakashi sent a massive Gokakyu, grand fireball, into the sky to alert others to their position. Hinata meanwhile had to steady herself on a nearby tree as she began panting heavily. Luckily, the other genin came to her rescue. Hinata-san, breath. Inhale through your nose and exhale out of your mouth. We need to get going, Naruto needs our help. The mention of his name seemed to calm her enough so she was able to get moving to help the one person who never called her weak, or a failure. Kakashi was sitting by the recently revealed entrance waiting for the two genin to rejoin the group. As much as he didn't want them to have to possibly put themselves in harm's way, the truth was that he needed them, more specifically Hinata. Kakashi pulled up his Hitai to reveal his Sharingan. Hinata, I need you to keep your Byakugan active. Take us on the shortest route to Naruto. The girl nodded and the group dashed into the complex. She directed them down the halls and through a series of passageways meant to confuse anyone who wasn't familiar with the layout and trap them in the labyrinth, but for a Byakugan user it was not much a challenge. As they got closer and closer, Hinata began to notice something. Kakashi-sensei? The group came to a halt. What is it, Hinata? She took a breath to steady her nerves. There is something wrong with Naruto-kun's chakra. It's pitch black. Kakashi's eyes betrayed the concern he tried to hide on his face. Take us to him. The girl nodded and they once again began their trek through the darkness. The group was paused outside a large metal door, and everyone turned to the only one who could see past the door for the sign that the room was clear. From what I can see, it's just Naruto-kun in there. Everyone nodded and burst through the door, but none of them were prepared for what awaited them. After one look, Shikamaru turned around and vomited. Hinata fell to her knees and began sobbing uncontrollably. Kat and Anko turned their heads from the grotesque scene before them. Kakashi was the only one who was able to get past the sight before him and approach his student, but tears were rolling down his face as he came face to face with his worst nightmare. In the middle of the room, on a table covered in crimson blood, was a very pale Naruto, with an incision running from just above his ribcage all the way down to his pant line. His skin was peeled back like a banana, and extending down from the ceiling were a plethora of small tubes and needles that ran past his ribs and seemed to be connected to his various internal organs. Kakashi followed the tubes with his eyes, and traced them back to the far side of the room where there were 8 very large container tubes that seemed to have only recently been drained. Kakashi brought a hand up to his face as he began shuddering uncontrollably. Oh Kami, I failed him, why? First Obito and Rin, then Sensei, now him. Kakashi approached his student, and very shakily put his fingers on Naruto's neck to confirm him dead. After all, there was way too much blood for him to be alive. Dub. Why? Dub. Impossible. Everyone looked up with glazed eyes. Kakashi tried to return the flaps of skin to their original position while he looked around for something to sew them together. He's alive! Everyone jumped to their feet and rushed to the blonde's side in a chorus of shouts and screams. No one except Hinata noticed his eyes creep open, and the now dulled cerulean eyes settled on her pale eyes. Everyone immediately stopped talking when they heard him whisper something. Hinata-chan, please. Everyone quieted to hear what he had to say. Hinata took his hand in hers, forgetting the shyness that previously plagued her life. What is it, Naruto-kun? He mumbled some response. Hinata brought her ear closer to his mouth. Jigomen and Naruto-kun, I couldn't hear why you. Naruto swallowed a lump and tears began streaming down his face. Please help me. It had taken another 17 minutes for another shinobi team to get to the entrance where Naruto was being held, and another hour after that before he was finally in a hospital room. By direct order of the Hokage, no one other than trusted medical staff were allowed inside his room, but the situation changed that night. Sarutobi was sitting in his office chair thinking back on the day's events. Sure, he managed to recover Naruto, who seemed to be okay, but that is where the good news stopped. He still had no idea where Orochimaru or any of his subordinates were, and he still didn't know what Orochimaru did to Naruto. Those who investigated the lab Naruto was found and told him that Orochimaru had done something to alter Naruto's chakra pathways, but they had no idea how or why. Little did he know things were just about to get much worse. Naruto slowly came to and realized that he was in a soft, warm bed, and a sense of relief washed over his entire being over not being in that hellhole anymore. I never want to go through anything like that ever again. Naruto sat up and looked around his empty room. There was a chair next to his bed, and on the table next to him there was a single card with a vase of lavenders. He tried to reach the card to read it, but it was just out of his reach, and the table next to him was just out of reach. With a sigh, he looked down at his bed and noticed that there seemed to be an indentation at the foot of his bed where someone had laid their head for a while and had fallen asleep. Someone must have spent a lot of time here, and it looks like I just missed them. My hand is still warm from whoever was holding it, but who could it have been? Gigi? Maybe Iruka-sensei, but I don't think he would have been able to spend so much time here. I know for a fact it wasn't Sasuke or Sakura, but then who was it? As he tried to think about who could have possibly cared enough about him to stay by his side for that long, he unconsciously thought back to the lab he was in and the tortures he experienced. Naruto brought his knees to his chest in a fetal position and hugged his legs as tears began streaming down his face. I just want to be like everyone else. Why do all these terrible things have to always happen to me? I just want someone to care about me. Dear Kami, I think I just might vomit. Enough with this pity party. You're a damn shinobi, so you better start acting like one. Naruto jumped to his feet, but he stumbled to the ground when his legs gave out. He picked himself off the ground and leaned against his bed as he looked around the room. Who's there? There was an awkward silence for a few moments. You don't know who I am? I can't say that I'm too surprised though, this is our first time speaking to one another. Naruto racked his brain for a possible answer to his self-imposed riddle. Kyuubi? There was a dark chuckle. Pity you were oh so close. Less than a day ago and you would have been right, but alas, time makes fools of us all. To answer you, no. I am not the Kyuubi, he has been dead for about a day now. Furthermore, you needn't speak aloud, you need only to speak with your thoughts, and we will be able to converse. We wouldn't want eavesdroppers, would we? Naruto took a moment to process what this mysterious voice just told him. Well, if you aren't the Kyuubi, then who are you? Naruto could feel the pure mirth dipping off the response he was given. I have been given many names throughout history, Yggdrasil, Tree of Life, or even Shinju. My name matters not, however, for convenience's sake you may refer to me as Jubi. That name itself should hold more enough meaning to you. Naruto's eyes widened. T10? But that's how? I mean, from what I've been able to read, there were only 9. There was a deep laughter in Naruto's mind. Pray tell me, just how much knowledge do you truly believe mortals such as yourself would be able to gather on deities such as the Biju? Are you simply naive or are you just that idiotic? Naruto hung his head in silence. Do not think I will hold your proverbial hand and baby you. I will not. You are my new vessel, and as such you will carry yourself with the dignity and pride the position commands. Naruto shakily worked his way back into his bed. Wait, what position? There was another moment of silence. What are you talking about? Are you not the Otsutsuki Hagoromo's successor? Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Who's that? There was a string of verbal curses after a short silence. Do not tell me that the deeds of the Rikudo Sennin have been forgotten. I will not stand for this affront to myself or my image. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry, Jubi-sama, but not much is known about the Rikudo Sennin other than that he was a monk who traveled around the world many centuries ago and taught people about chakra and jutsu. There was a heavy sigh in Naruto's mind. I forget that you mortals succumb to the processes of time, so it is only natural that certain events may be forgotten. But to forget his entire life's work is borderline insulting. Before I begin fixing this mistake, tell me your name, mortal. Naruto grinned. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. And one day I'll be Hokage. There was a chuckle. And Uzumaki, huh? I remember your kind from Hagoromo's travels. A lively bunch they were, and to think they split from those Senju. No matter. Listen and listen well, young Naruto, for I will only say this once. For the next half-hour Jubi explained the beginnings of the world and the wars that soon spread across the globe until one Otsutsuki Kage ate a forbidden fruit and obtained what was now known as chakra. She ended the wars with her godlike powers and bore a son whom also possessed chakra. It was at this time that the Jubi emerged and sought to reclaim its stolen power, but was then sealed by Kage's son who became the Shodaime Jinchuriki of the Jubi. With his new status he traveled the world and taught people the fundamentals of chakra and jutsu to deter war and improve the quality of life for humans. Naruto was happy to learn the jutsu was originally created with the intention to help people, and it was only later that such power was turned into techniques of death. On Hagoromo's deathbed he took it upon himself to split Jubi into 9 separate entities to prevent its rebirth into the world, but he gave the prediction that the day would come where they would all be united again and made whole. Apparently his prediction has been fulfilled, and now Naruto was to finish his work and usher in a new era of peace. After the Jubi was finished, Naruto was silent for a long time. Young Naruto, are you okay? You have been most quiet for quite some time now. Naruto snorted. What do you want me to say? You just told me that I have a god sealed inside of me, and on top of that I am the next Rikudo Sennin with a mission to save the world. What the hell does someone say to that? I just wanted to be a normal boy, live a good life, maybe have a family if someone was willing to have me. Sure, I said I wanted to be Hokage, but I don't think I'm ready to be the Rikudo Sennin. I don't think I'm worthy of such a title. Naruto heard what sounded like a clapping sound in his mind. Congratulations, mortal. You have successfully passed your initial test. Naruto blinked. Test? Yes, test. You were not the first person to be in this unique position. In fact, there have been at least a dozen others whom have had all Biju united in their being before. Each one of them were tasked with the same mission, but each one were seduced by the power and their mind was immediately filled with images of lording over others. As such, they failed the initial test, and I tore them asunder. Naruto gulped. But you were the first to show the quality needed to be my vessel, humility. Hagoromo was the first to have this quality, and therefore I did not fight him for control. Earlier I said that you would have to work to gain my respect, and by admitting you weren't worthy, you gained some of my respect. It is quite easy to boast about one's strengths, but it is curiously difficult to admit one's weakness. Naruto allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Jubi-sama. There was a quiet chuckle. I do not seek to flatter aimlessly, I simply state the truth. I know you have many questions, but for now rest. I have much work to do before you are ready for your mission. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Work? Anything I can help with? Naruto could feel the Jubi smirk. While I appreciate your offer, I must decline. First, I must harden your body and strengthen your inner coils to handle my power. Second, I will change your eyes so you can use my techniques. Lastly, I will give you my knowledge. I will make you ready to bear the mantle of the Rakuto Sannin physically and mentally, but it will be up to you after that. Just remember, to wield the power of a god is a responsibility like no other, and it tends to corrupt lesser minds. If at any time I deem you unworthy of my power, I will destroy you and find another who is. Naruto grinned. Don't worry, Jubi-sama. I won't let you down, that's a promise, and I never go back on my promises. But before you go, will I be able to talk to you anymore? I would really like to talk with you some more after you're finished. There was an amused laugh. See that you don't, you have no idea how long I have been waiting for a worth vessel. For your next question, do not fret. We will still be in contact, and you are more than welcome to ask for my advice at any time. After all, I am still a part of you, but after I finish I will go into a dormant state, and will not waken unless you purposefully call for me. Now sleep, I want to get started soon. Naruto shut his eyes and for the first time in a long time, he felt happy. Hi, Jubi-sama. Yendi. Chapter 2. Hinata walked into Naruto's hospital room to find him in the exact same position she left him in, though he seemed oddly at peace, more so than he had been in the past few days. She had been there for the past 4 days, only ever leaving his side to use the restroom or to get herself something to eat. She even slept in the chair with her head on his bed with his hand in hers. It might not have been a very comfortable position for her, but those were the best night's sleep she had ever gotten. The third day after Naruto was admitted to the hospital, she called a nurse when she began to suspect that Naruto needed a bath since there was a strong smell of body odor in the room. To her embarrassment, she found out that Naruto was given a bath earlier that morning, so it wasn't him who was giving off that rank smell. She left in a rush to clean herself back at the Hyuga compound, and when she prepared to step into the shower she smelled her undershirt, and found that it was very ripe. All in all, Hinata showed a fierce amount of perseverance in being in Naruto's presence as much as humanly possible. She had even almost come to blows with a certain nurse who foolishly tried to get her to leave once visiting hours were over. Needless to say, that nurse soon found that even the most docile kittens still have claws. She was determined to be there for Naruto, her light, her inspiration, her other half. Seeing him on that table folded open like the pages of a book haunted her dreams. Not the fact that he had been injured, she was a ninja and she was used to seeing injuries, though they might not have been as extensive as his were. No, the reason she barely got any sleep was because she was so utterly terrified of losing her blonde-haired love. She hardened her resolve and gathered up all the courage she could collect. This was it. When he woke up she would finally tell him how she felt, she would finally hold his hand, walk by his side, through thick and thin. She ran her hand through his hair and ran her hand down his cheek. She looked down at the base of his neck and saw a raised red vertical line that she knew ran down to just above his hips. A tear fell down her face, but she stopped herself from crying anymore. The tears had all run dry over the past few days. No more. I won't be weak anymore. I will finally be strong, if not for myself then for him. She noticed a strange black haze start seeping out of Naruto's abdomen. She was about to call for help when she noticed that it started to travel up Naruto's body. She watched in morbid fascination as it coagulated on Naruto's eyes and was absorbed fully into his eye sockets. She was staring wide-eyed as Naruto pushed himself upright with his forearms, eyes still closed. He turned his head towards her. That Senso, you were the one who has stayed by my side for so long. Why is that here, the Hinata? Are you here on orders from the Hokage? She turned bright red from his question, but she had finally found the courage to say what she always wanted to say, and she wasn't about to go back on her word now. Ayano and no one T told me to be here. I wanted to stay with you because. She stopped when she saw Naruto's eyes flutter open, one of her most favorite sights. A small smile made its way across her face when she finally saw those large blue orbs. She could get lost in them, they were oceans that seemed to just go on and on. Then she saw something that left her speechless. His blue eyes began growing darker, turning a deep violet color as the iris began to spread out, and concentric circles made their way all across his eye. It was the most majestic shade of purple she had ever seen before. It looked like the color the sky turned for only a split second just before the sun rose in the morning. His change didn't end there. 3 small tomos appeared on the circle closest to the center of his eye. It looks just like Sasuke-san's Sharingan. Naruto brought his hand palms up and he looked down at them. Only the first 3, huh? I guess it would be asking too much to have them fully matured in such a short time. Pity, I looked forward to the reactions when people finally them. He lifted his head to look up at a still frozen Hinata. I must thank you for staying with me for so long, Hyuga-san, and making sure I was healing properly. I truly did not expect anyone to care enough to stay as long as you have without explicit orders to do so, but once again I ask, why? Hinata felt crushed. And Naruto-kun? What happened to your eyes? And you sound different? Naruto chuckled as his eyes reverted back to their normal deep blue. Simple, I have finally accepted my destiny, and as such certain changes have occurred. Hinata frowned. Ayano, I'm glad that why you have accepted your destiny, whatever that means, but please call me Hinata. Naruto nodded. My apologies, Hinata-san. Better? Hinata smiled. Would you call me Hinata-chan? She was sweating when she saw Naruto's brow furrow, but suddenly a huge grin spread across his face, and he gave her one of those smiles that always brightened up her day. So my assumption was correct. You do have a certain degree of urge towards me. Hinata blushed and nodded meekly. Please don't put it like that it's much more than just an urge. You make me sound like Kiba-kun. Naruto nodded and put his legs out over the bed while patting down next to him, motioning her to sit next to him. She hesitated for a moment, but she took a step forward and sat next to him, painfully aware that he had only noted her feelings earlier. She had her head focused on the ground, but she looked up when she saw Naruto take her hand in his. He gave her a bright smile. Forgive me, Hinata-chan. I do not mean to make you sad, but I don't believe I can reciprocate your feelings at this time. She turned to look back down at the ground as tears fell from her eyes, but a finger under her chin brought her head back up to look at Naruto. But that doesn't mean I'm not prepared to learn, though. If you are willing to be patient with me, I will do everything in my power to discover if I can learn to return those feelings. Hinata closed her eyes halfway in disbelief, and a split second later she threw her arms around his neck in a soul-crushing hug and buried her face into his chest. Naruto was surprised by her sudden display of affection, so he sat there stunned, and to her dismay, didn't return the hug until several awkward seconds had passed. Naruto sensed her distress, and for reasons unknown to him he felt sad, so he brought his head closer to her ear. Forgive me, Hinata-chan, I did not mean to cause you distress, but you must understand, my upbringing was far from conventional, and as such I did not learn basic human emotions for quite some time. My childhood was ruled by fear, the fear or loneliness, and the fear of pain, both of which were unfortunately prevalent in my life. It will take me some time to feel comfortable around you, but I promise I will soon. Just please be persistent and don't give up on me. Naruto felt Hinata nod into his neck and he let a small smile run across his face as he lightly stroked her hair. They stayed this way for a few minutes until Naruto pulled away. I would like to stay this way all afternoon, but unfortunately I have to meet with the Hokage and explain my current situation. Should I stop by the Hyuga complex later? She nodded. I'd like that. To say that the Hokage was having a bad day would be the understatement of the century. First off, he was catching flack from AIM, more specifically Hanzo, for the blatant murder of his shinobi during the Chunin exams. Both Hanzo and Hiruzen knew that this issue was out their control. They signed a waiver specifically for that purpose after all. No, Hanzo just delighted in giving Hiruzen headaches whenever he could. On top of that, both Suna and Oto were upset for the delay of the exams, and the shinobi themselves were getting restless. Hiruzen knew that he could only stall them all for 2 more days at the most before he would be forced to proceed with the exams. Hiruzen just hoped Naruto would awaken by then. He knew how crushed Naruto would be if he was disqualified because he was in a hospital bed. Then there was Hiruzen's biggest problem, his traitor student Orochimaru. It had been 4 days since the rescue of Naruto and the discovery of Orochimaru's heinous experiment, and yet they were no closer to discovering what he had done to the boy or why. Hiruzen was disgusted when he heard how Orochimaru had made a clean incision down his thoracic region and carefully peeled Naruto's epidermis back, probably with a smirk on his face. Hiruzen was angry. Angry at Orochimaru for everything he had done over the years. His last act was just the icing on the cake. Angry at the council for calling for the execution of Naruto to prevent the Kyuubi from being unleashed. He knew it was a mistake to even let them know that Orochimaru had experimented on Naruto's seal. And last but not least, angry with himself for allowing it all to happen. He could have stopped Orochimaru years ago. He could have put the council down for good when he resumed the position of Hokage, and he could have done so much more to help Naruto than he already had. Hiruzen only hoped that he would be able to beg Naruto's forgiveness when he was awake. He was determined to change. It was better late than never, right? Maybe he could give Naruto private tutoring lessons. He was sure Naruto would jump at the chance to learn a new jutsu, and then afterward he would treat Naruto to some of his favorite food. Hiruzen hung his head in shame. I'm doing nothing more than bribing a young boy for failing to do something that I should have been doing for years. I truly am not fit for the position of Hokage. He got up to go visit Naruto when he heard a commotion outside his office. From what he could tell, it sounded like his secretary was trying to stop someone from entering his room claiming he was out for lunch, which they both knew was a lie. Then it hit him. She only says that lie to one person enter. He could hear a loud humph when his office doors swung open and Naruto walked in, still in his hospital gowns. Naruto had a scowl on his face. Hokage-sama, I suggest that you teach your assistants that they hold no authority over shinobi. Hiruzen frowned at his honorific name. Hello Naruto, how are you feeling? Can I get you anything? Naruto smiled. I'm doing well Hokage-sama, thank you for asking. As for what you can give me, how about some new clothes? I just don't think these skimpy gowns do me justice. Hiruzen nodded. Of course Naruto, I will have clothes brought for you. Rat. An ANBU dropped from the ceiling in a kneeling position. Hi Hokage-sama? Grab young Naruto here something to wear other than the rags that the hospital deemed fit to give him. Hi Hokage-sama. The ANBU disappeared in a swirl of leaves and Hiruzen walked around his desk and embraced Naruto in a grandfatherly hug. I'm sorry Naruto, I'm so sorry. I should have been there by your side for you all those years against the council, and I should have stopped Orochimaru so none of this should have happened to you. I'm so sorry, I've failed you Naruto. To Hiruzen's surprise Naruto chuckled and returned the hug. Nonsense GG. None of this is your fault. We are only human and we all make mistakes, and I've forgiven yours many years ago. You did what you could and I could ask no more than that. Sure there have been bad times, and I've had a hard life, but I never blamed you or anyone else. In fact, I think I'm a stronger person because of it, so in a way I'm grateful. Hiruzen couldn't believe how mature Naruto was, but he was happy nonetheless that Naruto had once again acknowledged him as his surrogate grandfather. After a few minutes Hiruzen stood back up and wiped a few stray tears from his eyes. Thank you Naruto, you have no idea how much that means to me. He went back behind his desk and sat down with a smile on his face while Naruto situated himself in one of the many chairs in the room. There was a silence until Naruto let out a sigh. So GG, I take it you want me to explain exactly what happened, am I correct? Hiruzen chuckled. That would be nice, yes. Naruto nodded. Tell me GG, what do you know of the Rikudo Sannin? Over the next hour Naruto explained the truth behind one of the biggest myths in shinobi history, and needless to say it was one hell of a story. Hiruzen was torn between anger at what was forced upon Naruto's shoulders, and happiness that Naruto finally had the strength to make his dream come true. Not once in the explanation did Naruto give any inclination as to wanting to abuse his new powers, which spoke volumes on his character. When Naruto was finished Hiruzen leaned back in his chair with a heavy sigh. Wow, just wow. Hey Naruto. Hi. Hiruzen leaned forward on his desk. Well, it's not that I don't believe you but well. Naruto smirked. You want to see my eyes right? Hiruzen nodded. It's just that I've always heard these stories as a boy, and to think that I can actually see the legendary dojutsu of the Rikudo Sannin is like a dream come true. Naruto chuckled. No problem GG, I would be concerned if you didn't ask to see them. In fact, I'm surprised you haven't sent me to a Biki or a Noichi for a sanity check. Hiruzen laughed. I can if you still want me to, but I think you have had enough excitement for a little while. Naruto held his hand up dismissively. I think I'll have to pass, thank you. Anyway, here we go. Hiruzen watched as Naruto's blue eyes darkened to a deep purple hue and his pupils spread out so concentric rings spread across his eye. Then 3 small tomo appeared on the ring closest to his pupil. His eyes exuded a divine power that was as gentle as it was vast. It was exceedingly different from either the Sharingan or Byakugan in its intimidation factor, yet it was so similar. Sarutobi just stared in awe for a few seconds before Naruto reverted his eyes back to normal. Well Naruto, I have seen few things in my life that have left me astounded, and that is most certainly one of them. What now? What do you want to do with this power? From what you told me you are tasked with bringing peace to the world, good luck with that by the way. Naruto snorted. Thanks for the vote of confidence GG. Anyway, what I would like to do is resign from Konoha's shinobi forces and travel the world uninhibited, though I doubt that will actually work. Hiruzen let out a strained sigh and began rubbing his temples. Yes, the council would never let you resign from our shinobi force. It's ironic really, since the majority of them were against you becoming a shinobi at all. But I'm sure as soon as you say you don't want to be a shinobi anymore they will fight against it with everything they have. Naruto sighed. Yes, I have come to grips with that outcome, and have come to only one conclusion. You must promote me to a rank similar to that of the Sannin, and allow me to leave the village with special privileges like Senju Tsunade and Jiraiya. Hiruzen chuckled. Ho? I'm surprised you know about those two, from what I heard history was your worst subject at the academy. Naruto grinned. What can I say? When your mind is merged with the creator of this world you tend to learn a thing or two. Hiruzen grew deathly pale. Wait, does that mean you? Naruto looked down at the floor. Yes, GG, I know who my parents were. Hiruzen opened his mouth to speak, but he was cut off by Naruto. Don't worry, I understand why you didn't say anything. If word of my lineage got out across the elemental nations, then I would have been in danger, especially from anyone who would want retribution for my father's actions. You had to choose between some piece of trivial information given to a child and the safety of thousands of people. As a Hokage, you made the correct choice, no matter if I agree with it or not. Your duty to this village is stronger than your responsibility to me, and like I said, I forgave your mistakes long ago. Hiruzen wiped stray tears from his eyes. Naruto, your sense of compassion and forgiveness is exactly what is needed to bring peace to these war-torn nations. From this day forward, myself and all those loyal to me will do everything we can to help you with your mission. Naruto felt truly happy, a rare moment in his life. Thanks, GG, you really have no idea how happy that made me. The aged Hokage nodded and sighed. Okay, so now the problem is getting you to a position so you will be free to move around the elemental nations. I don't think I need to tell you that the council won't exactly let this slide, do I? Naruto shook his head. No, you don't. I do have a plan though, but for that to work I need to be a Chunin, so you need to put me in the Chunin exams again. Hiruzen chuckled. The Rikudo Sannin Reborn is taking the Chunin exams? Well, I can't exactly say that is fair now, can I? Naruto stifled a chuckle. No, I guess it isn't, but then again, the life of a shinobi is never a fair one. Anyway, as long as I at least make it to the finals, you have the authority to promote me, regardless of what anyone else says. After that, it is up explicitly to the Hokage on whom he or she promotes to a Jounin, unless the Jounin hopeful completes the Jounin test. That would be the easier path and would silence anyone who could oppose my promotion, but unfortunately we simply don't have the time. Once I am a Jounin, I am able to be put on a temporary leave of absence from the shinobi forces, much like Tsunade and Jiraiya has, and after that I would only have to check back into the village every now and then. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair and stared up at the ceiling. Well, Naruto, I'm impressed. I didn't think you would be able to concoct such an elaborate plan such as this as quickly as you did. Naruto pointed to his head. Merged with a deity, remember? Hiruzen formed an O face. I see. Well, I suppose I could come up with an excuse that Orochimaru caused the delay by trying to infiltrate during the exams. It isn't a complete lie. Very well. We will hold the preliminary matches in a few days, and a month after that we will hold the finals. Naruto smiled. Thanks, GG. I'll give everyone a show they won't believe. I'll make it so the council won't have any reason to doubt my promotion. Naruto stood up from his seat. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go to the Hyuga compound. Hiruzen cocked his head to the side. Hyuga compound? May I ask what for? Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well, it would seem that I was not as observant as I should have been. Naruto watched as the old man jumped out of his chair and began jumping up and down in joy. What on earth are you doing, GG? Hiruzen turned to Naruto with the largest grin on his face. I take it that you finally noticed the young heiress of the Hyuga clan, right? The blonde nodded his head. Well, yes, but I don't know if I feel the same way about her yet. Where is this going? Hiruzen waved his hand dismissively. Where you like her or not is not important. Naruto arched an eyebrow. Beg your pardon? Hiruzen chuckled. You see, there has been a little bit going on over the past few years. Once word got out that the young Hinata had a crush on you, several Jounin got together and created a wager on when you would finally notice. This eventually spread throughout the village, and eventually everyone over the rank of Chunin got in on it, renewing the pot every year. Everyone who wanted to be part of the pot had to put in 1,000 ryo each year, and they were able to choose time frames on when they thought you would find out. Luckily for me, there were only 3 others besides myself who chose the time frame of the Chunin exams. Tell me, Naruto, what would you do with 10 million ryo? Naruto sighed. I'm glad that the village has taken pleasure in placing wagers on my personal life. Now excuse me, I must go shower and get a decent meal in my system. Just as Naruto was about to leave, the ANBU from earlier reappeared in Hiruzen's office with Naruto's new outfit. I hope this works, Hokage-sama. These were the only clothes that were left in the spare outfits box. Naruto grinned at what his new look would be. They're perfect. Hinata was rummaging through her closet trying to find something to wear for Naruto that night. Granted, he hadn't exactly said that it was a date, but for Hinata it was close enough. After 5 long years she simply didn't care either way. She wanted something that was form-fitting but not too revealing for someone of her position. The last thing she wanted was to receive flack from her father for not upholding the Hyuga image in public. Unfortunately for her, Hayashi just so happened to be passing her room on his way to his study, and was curious as to why his daughter was pulling all her clothes out of her closet. His eyes widened when he realized exactly what was going on. Damn it! This can't be happening right now. Of all times to take an interest in dating, she chooses now. He sighed and stepped into her room. So who is it? Hinata froze and bolted to an upright position to face her father. Tusan? I don't you understand the Q question. Hayashi narrowed his eyes. Don't lie to me. The only time girls your age rummage through their clothes is when they are trying to find something to impress a boy. You are more than aware that whomever you associate with reflects upon the Hyuga clan as a whole, so I'll ask again, who is it? Hinata hung her head in defeat. It's Uzumaki Naruto. Hinata didn't see her father's eyes widen. No. Hayashi thought that would be sufficient, and began to walk out of his eldest daughter's room. And no Tusan. Hayashi froze and turned around. Excuse me? Hinata balled her fists, and summoned every ounce of courage she had. Will meet with Naruto tonight. Whether you like it or not. Hayashi had an amused smile on his face. Oh really? Hinata steeled her resolve. Yes. Hayashi's grin widened. Well, it would seem that this boy is all it takes for you to show some backbone. Interesting, I will meet with this boy, and if I deem him fit you may proceed with your plans. Of all the responses Hinata was expecting, this was not one of them. Arigato? Hayashi walked out of her room whispering to himself. So much like her mother, I can only pray she has as much spirit as Hitomi did. Hinata only blinked as she watched her father leave her room, and was staring at the door for several more minutes waiting for her father to come back in and tell her it was all a cruel joke. Thankfully for her he did not, but she was just as confused. After she regained her composure, she went back to finding something suitable to wear, which took the better part of another half hour. She was just finishing up when there was a knock on her door. Enter. The branch family member Ko opened the door and bowed. Hinata-sama, there is an Uzumaki Naruto here for you. A smile formed on Hinata's face. Thank you, Ko. Please tell him I'll be there shortly. Ko bowed. I shall inform them of your arrival. Hinata got nervous. Them? Ko nodded. Indeed, your father is currently meeting with him. Hinata ran out of the room past Ko with wide eyes. At that same time Naruto was sitting in the reception area with Hayashi, who was glaring at the blonde. So Naruto is it? Naruto nodded his head. Indeed, Uzumaki Naruto, Hayashi-sama. Hayashi arched his eyebrow. Is that so? Well, that is a very curious choice of clothing. May I ask what inspired it? Naruto smirked. I am very proud of my Uzumaki heritage, and as such I wear the Uzumaki swirl of Uzashogakure proudly. Hayashi blinked. So you are aware of your ancestral home? Naruto chuckled. Yes, I guess you could say that I have been informed of my heritage very recently, and I look forward to exploring my roots in the future. Hayashi was fixated on the word heritage, and so decided to do some information gathering. Naruto-san, has anyone told you that you bear an uncanny resemblance to the Yondaime Hokage? Naruto's eyes widened. So, he knows, does he? Well, two can play mind games. Naruto regained his serenity. It may have been mentioned once or twice, but surely I cannot be related in any way. If I was, then there would be no way I would have had to face the hardships I have had to deal with in my short life. Hayashi smirked. You know, it is unwise to linger on the past, instead you should forge a better future. Naruto grinned. Oh, you misunderstand, Hayashi-sama. I am proud of what I have overcome. Every beating, every glare, every biased remark, they all shaped me into the man I am today. Hayashi stared at the boy. And exactly what kind of man are you? Naruto smirked. A far greater man than this village has ever produced before. Before Hayashi could respond, Hinata burst into the room with wide eyes. For a few seconds she looked back and forth between Naruto and Hayashi in fear that they would be at each other's throats, but her fears were unfounded. Her face grew red when she saw what Naruto was wearing. Instead of his bright orange Kill Me Now jumpsuit, he now wore regular black shinobi pants with matching black sandals. He wore a plain white shirt with a white overcoat over top with the sleeves ripped off, accentuating his oddly toned arms. Had he turned around, she would have seen 9 black tomo with the Uzumaki swirl below. When she noticed they were both staring at her, she reverted to her shy old self and bowed low. Jigomen Two-san, and Naruto-kun. I hope I wasn't interrupting anything important. Naruto shook his head. Of course not, Hinata-chan, in fact, we were just finishing up. Naruto got up and bowed to Hayashi. Forgive me, Hayashi-sama, but all will be revealed during the Chunin exams. He turned to Hinata with an arm outstretched. Shall we? Hinata looked between Hayashi and Naruto once before smiling and taking the offer. Naruto squeezed her hand reassuringly and turned to Hayashi. I shall return her before it grows too late, and shall assure that we uphold the standards someone of her position requires. Hayashi, for the first time in several years, was stunned. I expect nothing less, Uzumaki-san. Both Naruto and Hinata bowed before walking out the front door with Hayashi watching them the whole way. Hayashi let out a sigh. You are full of surprises, Naruto. Your father would be proud. As soon as Naruto and Hinata walked out the front door, he let out a sigh. Wow, that was much more stressful than I thought it would be. Hinata giggled and molded herself into his side, something she had wanted to do for years. He's just very stern. I can tell that deep down he really does care about myself and Hanabi. He just doesn't show it very often, but and no matter what, I don't think he wants to see his daughters grow you up. Naruto looked down at the girl snuggling into his side. Well, I can't really say that I don't enjoy the contact. He slowly pulled his arm free from Hinata's grasp, and she immediately looked down at the ground thinking she did something wrong. No, I already blew my chance. I can't believe I actually thought I could get him to like me. She was stopped mid-rant when she felt Naruto's arm wrap around her shoulder and pull her close. Naruto looked down at the girl's face and chuckled. There is no need to be so nervous, Hinata-chan. I told you that I would try to discover any feelings towards you, and I believe being physically close like this is a way to do that. Hinata nodded her head slowly and enjoyed the warmth radiating off him. Please don't let this be a dream. The pair were about to walk out the gates of the compound when a boy their age crossed their path and almost knocked the two of them over. Naruto quickly grabbed Hinata around the waist and twirled her around his back like a dance move to avoid a collision with the boy. When Hinata was safely on the ground, albeit madly blushing, Naruto turned to face the Hyuga boy he recognized as Neji from his earlier confrontation during the first portion of the Chunin exam. Is there an issue you have with us, or do you just delight in interrupting good moments? The boy narrowed his gaze at Naruto. I have no issue with the two of you being together. In fact, it's almost like you were made for each other. Naruto smiled and almost apologized for his rude behavior, until the boy started talking again. Yes, failures such as yourselves should stick together. That way no one else has to deal with losers such as you two. Naruto glared at the boy, and was about to act when he felt a delicate hand on his shoulder. Naruto turned around and saw Hinata staring at the ground, silently begging him to not press this confrontation. Naruto took Hinata's hand in his and brushed past the boy, nearly knocking him over. The boy glared at them. Run along, failure, and Hinata-sama, try not to embarrass the clan too much. Naruto was fuming, and wanted nothing more than to put the Hyuga in his place, but he reined in his emotions for his companion's sake. They were about to pass the guards at the front gate when a look of terror came over their faces and they dropped to their knees. Hinata-sama, Naruto-sama. Please enjoy your evening. Naruto chuckled and kept walking out of the compound with the confused Hinata in tow. And Naruto-kun, why were those guards so afraid of you? Naruto smirked. Well, when I tried to get access to the Hyuga complex, they were most adamant about not admitting me. They were unfortunately introduced to Inton, in release, the origin of all genjutsu. Hinata didn't have time to say anything before she was pulled into Naruto's embrace, and she saw Naruto's eyes develop 3 tomo. Kamui? Hinata felt a pull on her person, and she closed her eyes and pushed her head into Naruto's shoulder. You can open your eyes, Hinata-chan. She slowly opened her eyes and saw that they were on top of the Yondaime Hokage's head, clear on the other side of Konoha. She stared at Naruto wide-eyed, not even knowing which question to ask. And Naruto-kun? He chuckled. I will explain everything after dinner. Naruto brought his thumb up to his mouth and bit it. He performed several hand seals and slammed his hands on the ground. Gyakukuchios no Jutsu, reverse summoning. In a puff of smoke, a large blanket and a picnic basket appeared. Naruto stepped onto the blanket, kicking off his sandals at the end, and made his way over to the basket. As he started taking out the items of food, he looked up at Hinata, who still hadn't moved. Hinata blinked and snapped back to reality. Jigomin. The dinner itself was immaculate, the food was fresh, and it was all of Hinata's favorite foods. She still had no idea how he knew she liked fried cucumber and peanut butter sandwiches, but he did. For dessert, she was sure that there would be something like sakura mochi, sweet pink mochi, rice cake, filled with red bean paste and covered with a cherry blossom leaf, sakura, or some dango, Japanese dumplings similar to mochi served on sticks of 3 or 4. But to her delight, he pulled out something that was considered a delicacy this time of year in Konoha, piping hot cinnamon rolls with a sugar glaze on top. The two talked about anything and everything, comparing stories from the academy, or lack thereof in Hinata's case, to telling stories about the different missions they had done with their team. Hinata couldn't believe it when Naruto told her about fighting one of the Kirin no Shinobigatana Shishinan-shu, 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, and freeing an entire country from an oppressive business tycoon, but somehow to her it seemed exactly like something Naruto would do. She didn't have any exciting stories like his, but nonetheless Naruto listened intently, laughing at her jokes and congratulating her achievements. Eventually they finished their meal and they began to watch the sun set over the horizon from one of the best vantage points in all of Konoha, with Hinata leaning her head on Naruto's shoulder, and Naruto's arm wrapped draped over her shoulder pulling her closer. Once the sun was down, Naruto brought out a small lamp and set it down in front of them. So Hinata-chan. She snuggled closer into the crook of his neck. What is it, and Naruto-kun? He took a deep breath. Well, I want to explain what happened to me. Hinata's eyes snapped open, and she leaned up. Why you don't have to if you don't want to. Naruto shook his head. It'll come out during the Chunin exams anyway, so there really isn't any point to be secretive with it. He began explaining all about the tailed beasts, and explaining the history of the Rikudo Sennin in general. Then he explained about the Jubi, and its sealing inside of the Rikudo Sennin, granting him powers never before seen in the world. He told about the splitting of the Jubi by the Rikudo Sennin into the 9 Biju known today. He paused for a second to let the information sink in. The reason Orochimaru captured me is related to the Biju. In fact, it's the entire reason he targeted me. Hinata shuddered when she remembered the sight of Naruto on that table. Why would he do that to you? Naruto sighed. Because you were lied to, Hinata-chan. In fact, the entire population under the age of 15 has been lied to. Hinata blinked. What do you mean, and Naruto-kun? Naruto looked down at the ground. You see, we were all told that the Yondaime Hokage did battle with the Kyuubi on October 10th all those years ago, and he sacrificed his life to kill it. Most of that is true, he did sacrifice his life in battle against the Kyuubi, but he didn't kill it. It was instead sealed into his son, born less than an hour before, sealed into me. Hinata got a double shocker. Not only was her crush the holder of one of the most powerful entities in history, but he was also the son of the most beloved Hokage in history. Naruto closed his eyes and waited to hear her reaction, but instead felt her pull him in for a strong embrace. I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun, I'm so sorry. I was never there for you, why you must have been so lonely, I'm sore. Naruto laughed. Nonsense, Hinata. None of this is even remotely your fault. I have long since come to terms with my condition, and used the pain of loneliness to push myself and motivate me whenever I was down. Unfortunately, my tale is not finished. You see, Orochimaru somehow learned of the increased meiotic regeneration granted to me by housing the Kyuubi, and so he performed an experiment. He sought to reunite all the Biju in a single vessel, and he was successful. Hinata leaned back and stared at Naruto. Yes, Hinata, I now house the Jubi, the creator of this world, and have been granted all of his powers. For all intents and purposes, I am the second coming of the Rikudo Sennin, tasked with bringing peace to this war-torn world. Hinata reacted about as well as anyone would if they found out their love was pretty much the reincarnation of God. She fainted. Naruto chuckled and began packing up the basket, leaving Hinata to rest. For several minutes he watched her sleep until he decided to wrap her up to shield her from the cool night air. Kamui? Naruto materialized in the middle of the Hyuga compound with Hinata wrapped in a blanket, who was doing her best to get as far into Naruto's chest as she could. Naruto walked up to the main building and opened the door to enter the reception area where Hayashi was waiting for him. Hayashi arched an eyebrow. Pleasant night? Naruto nodded. Very pleasant, thank you, Hayashi-sama. Hayashi nodded and motioned Naruto to set his daughter down on a couch before he left the room. Naruto gingerly set her down on the couch, and as soon as the familiar warmth was gone, Hinata began whining in her sleep. She fluttered her eyes open and saw Naruto's face. I knew it was all a dream. Naruto chuckled. No, Hinata-chan, you simply fainted when I finished my explanation. Hinata's eyes widened. And then Naruto-kun Gomen. I didn't mean to, it's just that I will. Naruto brushed one of her bangs out of her face. Don't worry about it, I actually thought you took it rather well considering everything that happened. Now, I must take my leave, unfortunately. I would love to spend more time with you before the Chunin finals, but unfortunately I must train myself to gain access to the full range of my power. I will see you at the conclusion of the exams, Hinata-chan. He bent down to kiss her forehead, but she tilted her head up to catch his lips with hers. He would have pulled back, but Hinata had managed to snake her hands out from the blanket and wrap around his neck, so he stayed that way for several seconds, just enjoying the moment. They broke apart when they had someone clearing their throat behind them. Naruto jumped back to see a very irate Hayashi staring daggers into Naruto. I believe you have said goodnight quite well enough. It is late, and Hinata must get a full night's sleep for her training tomorrow. Naruto bowed. Of course, Hayashi-sama. He turned to Hinata, who was trying to pull herself out of the blanket cocoon. Good night, Hinata-chan. Naruto walked out from the Hyuga compound with a grin on his face and a strange warm feeling in the pit of his stomach. Hiruzen rubbed his temples in frustration. He sat at the head of a large oval table with himself at the head. To his right were all of the shinobi clan heads, to his left were the elected officials that made portion of the council that voiced the interests of the non-shinobi members of Konoha. And at the other end of the table sat Hiruzen's cycloptic ex-team mate Danzo. They had been sitting there in silence for the better part of 10 minutes before a particularly round council member in charge of the food market quarter. Hokage-sama? I believe everyone is present, why do we not start? Hiruzen nodded. Very well. I call this council meeting to order. We are tasked this evening with bringing the Chunin exams back on track. Due to some unforeseen circumstances involving Orochimaru, we were forced to postpone the next stage of the exams. Nara Shikaku spoke next. About that, Hokage-sama, I would like to report that our teams still have yet to determine Orochimaru's course of action, and we still don't know why he targeted him. It was common knowledge throughout the village that Naruto was captured by Orochimaru thanks to his pink-haired teammate. This was not taken well by the civilian side of the village, as they saw their resident demon running off with a known traitor. At the mention of the Jinchuriki, a pink-haired councilwoman by the name of Mabuki stood up in protest. Hokage-sama, surely you have the child in a well-protected area just in case he decides to turn against us. Surely it isn't coincidence that he is kidnapped by one of the biggest threats to this village and turns up not a day later. He is a menace to us all and must be dealt with. The civilian side of the council began nodding their heads in agreement. Hiruzen was taking deep breaths to calm himself, but before he could respond, Shikaku slammed his hand on the table, a rare occurrence for Inara. Shut the fuck up. Everyone was wide-eyed at his outburst. The number of times Shikaku has been this angry could be counted on one hand. All of you presume that Naruto went with that psychopath willingly. You all have no idea what Orochimaru did to him. My son was on the team who found him, and what he saw shook him up so much that he stayed in his room for 2 days and refused to come out. I had to have Inoichi help him so he didn't fall into a deep depression. Said Blonde cleared his throat. True. While the young Nara was the best of friends with Naruto, what he saw was enough to shake his entire belief in being a shinobi. He had used my technique to see what he saw, and let me tell you, that night I didn't sleep for more than an hour. Truthfully, it's a miracle that Naruto hasn't been emotionally broken, and the fact that he is still able to function as a person speaks volumes about his perseverance. Several of the council members looked down in shame, while the same pink-haired woman held her head up in indignation. Whatever happened to that boy has been deserved several times over from what my daughter has told me. Inoichi arched an eyebrow. Oh really? And exactly what has she told you? Mabuki scoffed. What hasn't he done? He tried to sabotage their team from day one. He almost got the young Uchiha killed on their first mission outside the village walls. And now he has purposely impeded his team's progress during the Chunin exams. Inoichi chuckled. Well, I guess that's just too bad. Mabuki glared at the blonde. What? Shikaku caught his friend's implications. What he is saying is that due to all of those issues being shinobi affairs, they will be dealt with by the Shinobi Council, not the civilian side, and I believe I speak for everyone on the Shinobi Council when I say that there will be no actions brought against Uzumaki-san at this time. The rest of the Shinobi Council nodded in agreement, while the civilian side steamed. Hiruzen sighed. Listen, I didn't bring this meeting together for us to argue over Naruto. I am here to simply state that I have made the decision to have the last phase of the Chunin exams in a week from tomorrow. They will consist of tournament-style back-to-back fights where the matches are chosen at random. We will determine the winner of the Chunin exams that way, and everyone who managed to finish the second phase, with Team 7 included, will participate in the final phase. Any questions? Mabuki was about to speak when Hiruzen shut her down. And yes, Uzumaki Naruto will be participating along with his team, unless of course you want to exclude your daughter and Sasuke too? Mabuki shook her head no. Good, then this meeting is hereby adjourned. Everyone got up and left except for Shikaku, who stayed behind. Hokage-sama, are you sure it's wise to let Naruto participate in the last round? Hiruzen nodded his head. Yes, he must participate. There is no other way. You will see what I mean when the time comes. The entire village will bear witness to a new era. Shikaku arched an eyebrow, waiting for an answer. When one never came, he sighed and stood up. Troublesome. Well, for Naruto's sake, I hope you're right with this, Hokage-sama, I really do. Hiruzen stared down at the desk he was still seated at. Me too, Shikaku, me too. Yendi. Chapter 3. Naruto was sitting cross-legged atop the Yondaime Hokage's head, meditating as the sun peeked over the tops of the trees. He was deep in thought, planning his strategic emergence as the new Rikudo Sannin. He would have to do this delicately. If he went about this too hastily, he was sure he would face resistance from the council and the civilians, and that could delay his mission by months, something he wasn't willing to risk. He opened his eyes and saw the first rays of the sun. Absolutely stunning. It is hard to imagine such beauty exists in this broken world. Naruto sighed and got himself up off the ground. Guess I should meet with my team today. Naruto closed his right eye and focused chakra to his left. Kami. Naruto shimmered out of existence and rematerialized at Training Ground 7. He knew his team met here every morning, and by the looks of it he had another 2 hours before anyone else would show. His eyes wandered over to the 3 training poles, and he walked over to the middle one. A smile spread across his face as he remembered being tied there for trying to sneakily eat the 3 lunches during the bell test. Taking a walk down memory lane, are we? Naruto turned face to see his cycloptic Jounin sensei. I guess you could call it that. I will miss this place when I'm gone, many fond memories here. Kakashi looked deep in thought. So Hokage-sama was serious. Kakashi stepped towards his student, and when he was a foot from Naruto, he dropped to his knees. Please Naruto, forgive me. The entire time I had been your sensei, I had made sure to keep my distance from you. I failed you as a sensei by subconsciously holding back on your training, and because of that you were captured and tortured. I abandoned you, a comrade and a student, and because of that I am lower than the maggots on a rotting carcass. Naruto blinked in surprise. He didn't expect the prideful XANBU captain to so easily fall to his knees and admit his failures. Naruto started chuckling. Apology accepted. Kakashi looked up in disbelief, and he saw amusement in Naruto's eyes. I'll admit I am not pleased with your confession, but at least you had the guts to admit you were wrong and sought forgiveness. Also, do not think that you were the reason Orochimaru captured me. He is one of the best shinobi Konoha has ever produced, so there was no way I stood a chance as a genin, no matter if you trained me to your fullest potential or not. The silver-haired man wiped a tear from his eye and stood up. Naruto, there are no words to describe how thankful I am that I had the honor to teach one of the most compassionate and forgiving people in all the elemental nations. The blonde youth stared at the man for a few seconds till he started laughing. Nonsense, Kakashi, I am not the saint you or Hokage-sama makes me out to be. I simply see the facts and keep an open mind. To change the world does not come about by monumental deeds and revolutionary ideas, it comes from everyday confrontations and the willingness of the people to change. I believe the day will come when people can truly understand each other, but for that to happen I must shoulder the burden of people's hatred and grudges, even those directed towards me. Kakashi nodded. Eloquently spoken, Naruto, and for what it's worth, I believe that if anyone can find such a future, it's you. Now, if there is anything I can do to help you, please, don't hesitate to let me know. Naruto rubbed his chin deep in thought with a grin on his face. Well, know that you mention it, my taijutsu is still pretty horrible. The one-eyed man just smiled. Sasuke was having an oddly good day. First, he was promised a spot in the Chunin finals next week, despite the fact that his team was broken up and they didn't actually finish the second phase of the test. He was also promised special lessons with Kakashi on his use of his newly unlocked Sharingan, something he thought he would have to figure out for himself. He also heard that his blonde teammate had been discharged from the hospital, something he was very happy with. Sure, he butted heads with the dope every now and then, but he was one of his few friends, almost like a surrogate brother. When he saw him kidnapped he almost broke down. It was like that night all over again, but he knew he had to swallow the pain and report the abduction to the Hokage. He pushed himself to exhaustion to reach the tower that day, and he was surprised that his pink-haired teammate was able to keep up. Guess she just needed the proper motivation. The cherry on top of his proverbial ice cream sundae was the fact that today was the day that Naruto rejoined Team 7 for a few days of team training before the last part of the Chunin exam. He got up at the break of dawn for his routine training exercises, and after he showered and got something in his system he headed off to meet his team. He knew that he could probably wait another hour or two, but still held hope that one of these days his sensei would finally show up on time. As he walked into the area of his team's meeting spot he heard the distinct sound of sparring. Curious, he masked his presence and hid behind a tree, looking out to see who it was. He wasn't surprised to see Naruto there. Know that dope would always be up at the break of dawn pushing himself to his limits, but what did surprise Sasuke was that Kakashi was also there. The Uchiha couldn't believe it. The notorious late Kakashi was actually on time. No, he was early. Sasuke brought his hands up to flare his chakra. Kai! Sasuke blinked. It wasn't a genjutsu. This was actually happening, and now the two knew Sasuke was there. Naruto and Kakashi stopped sparring and turned their attention towards the tree where they felt a flare of chakra. Naruto grinned. He was anxious to see Sasuke's reaction to his changes, but he knew he couldn't reveal everything yet. You can come on out, Sasuke. You are more than welcome to join us. In fact, I think Kakashi might be thankful. He looks like he's getting very tired. The blonde looked over to his sparring partner who was panting. Not everyone has limitless energy, Naruto. It isn't very fair to compare me to a stamina beast like yourself. Sasuke smirked and walked out from the tree. I think you're getting rusty, Kakashi-sensei, if the dobe is able to push you to your limits. I guess you should start doing some physical conditioning that the weird spandex-wearing guy keeps pestering you about. Speaking of weird clothes, what's with the get-up, Naruto? Kakashi paled and Naruto laughed. True, I pushed him to his limits, but it isn't because he is out of physical condition. As to my change in wardrobe, well, I felt that orange and blue weren't the best colors for a ninja, and so I procured a new outfit. Sasuke gave a well, enough small talk for now. Since you are here, how about a spar while we wait for the last member of our team? That is if you think you are healed enough to receive a beat down. Naruto chuckled and took off his outer jacket, getting into a stance with his knees bent, his left arm bent across his chest, and his right hand extended up and over his head. Sasuke arched an eyebrow. What kind of stance is that? Naruto didn't answer, so Sasuke got in his own stance. The two stared each other down, waiting for the other to make the first move. It was Sasuke who charged first, closing the distance in a fraction of a second, throwing a right hook at Naruto's face. What happened next neither Sasuke nor Kakashi could explain. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's fist, bringing his hand to hit Sasuke's elbow. Naruto used the momentum to throw Sasuke in the air, pivoting Sasuke's fist till he was in the air upside down facing away from Naruto. Naruto then threw an open palm strike towards the square of Sasuke's back, connecting and forcing Sasuke's back to arch. When the hit connected, it forced the air out of Sasuke's lungs and sent him skidding across the ground, coming to a stop several meters from where Naruto stood. The blonde took a deep calming breath, still in the position in which he sent Sasuke flying. He lowered his arms to his side and walked over to his teammate. He sent a glance towards Kakashi, who was still staring wide-eyed at the blonde. Naruto stepped towards the Uchiha's side and helped him up to his feet despite his protests to be left alone. Apparently that blow wounded his pride more than his person. What the hell was that? Naruto blinked at his teammate. What do you mean? The Uchiha glared at the blonde. Don't give me that shit. I want to know how you were able to throw me around like a rag doll. Naruto made an O face, pissing off an already irate Sasuke. Well, you see, I grabbed your arm when you threw the punch and knocked you off balance too. That isn't what I meant. I want to know how you knew to do that. That isn't any taijutsu style I've ever seen, and that move was way too fluid for someone like you to pull off. Naruto flinched, and was taking calming breaths to keep his emotions under control. Careful, Sasuke. Don't presume to know anything about me. You are nothing more than a teammate, and I hold no obligations to you outside those parameters. Tell me, when was the last time you even cared to talk to me about my life? Do you know my favorite color, my favorite hobby, my birthday even? I doubt you know any one of those, because you simply don't care. You have been self-centered the entire time I've known you, and the one thing you've done right by me was jumping in front of a barrage of Saban for me back in Wave. But then that might have been some way to hold yourself over me. I don't owe you anything, so you have no right to make demands of me. Naruto picked up his jacket off the ground and walked out of the training area, not sparing another glacé over his shoulder. Sasuke immediately realized his mistake. He had been too caught up in the fact that he was so soundly defeated that he managed to drive one of the only people to actually give a damn about him away. He was about to run after the blonde to apologize when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked back and saw his sensei shaking his head. Let him go, Sasuke. He just needs some time to cool down. He is still recovering mentally, and it might take some time for him to really come back. Sasuke looked down at the ground. I'm just so angry. I'm angry with Naruto for beating me so easily. I'm angry with the village for everything they did to Naruto over the years. I'm angry at Orochimaru for doing those terrible things to him. But most of all, I'm angry at myself for not being able to do anything to help him. I'm weak, Kakashi. I'm a pathetic excuse for a shinobi if I couldn't even protect my only friend. A tear fell down Sasuke's cheek. Then do something about it. Sasuke looked up at his sensei in surprise. Train yourself, push yourself to your limits and beyond. Throw aside your doubts and anger, and just focus on bettering yourself so something like that never happens again. The Uchiha looked deep in thought for a moment, and then his eyes snapped open with a determined fire burning in his eyes. Thank you, Kakashi. Can you help me? Can you train me to protect my friends? Kakashi lifted up his headband to reveal his Sharingan eye. Let's get started. Naruto was upset despite his best efforts to keep his emotions in check. He wanted nothing more than to beat the Uchiha senseless, but since he knew that would probably kill the boy, he had to walk away. His entire life has been one humiliation after another with Sasuke, ever since they were kids in the academy. He had done everything under the sun to surpass Sasuke all his life, to make himself be acknowledged as an equal, but now that he had finally reached his goals, Sasuke only grew angry and blew him off. He was so caught up in his thoughts that he had accidentally walked into Training Ground 8, where Team 8 was preparing for the exams. Hinata was the first to notice Naruto, since she had her Byakugan active, and the momentary distraction earned her a hit from Kiba that sent her skidding along the ground straight towards Naruto. Naruto blinked when he saw something skidding towards him out of his peripheral vision, and he stared in disbelief as Hinata got up off the ground and brushed the dirt off her clothes. The blonde stared at her for a few seconds, looking past her at her team who were all staring back at him. Naruto chuckled and turned to address the group. Forgive the intrusion. I was too caught up in my thoughts, and it seems that I interrupted your training. I will be taking my leave now. Just as he was about to walk away, he felt arms grip him from behind and locked over his font. It's okay, Naruto-kun, we were just finishing up A anyway. Why aren't I interrupting anything? Naruto chuckled and turned around in the girl's arms. I don't know, Hinata-chan. Your team seems to be upset with my presence here. Kurenai stepped forward. Nonsense, Naruto. Hinata is correct. We were just finishing up for the morning. It is time they all break apart for their individualized training programs. Can't have them spy on each other now, can we? The red-dyed woman turned to her two male students. Run along, you two. I believe your parents are expecting you for training in your clan techniques. Said boys looked at their sensei, then at the blonde, then at Hinata, and finally at each other. Kiba sighed. Hey Shino, wanna go get some grub before we have to go for more training? I'm famished. Shino shrugged and began to walk off with the boy. That's agreeable. I don't look forward to my father's training. He is surprisingly brutal. Naruto watched the pair fade into the distance, and finally looked down at the blue-haired girl who was snuggling closer into his chest with her eyes closed. Well then I guess I came at an opportune moment, since I was heading to get some lunch, but I guess I should go to the hospital now. Kurenai arched an eyebrow. Hospital? I never pegged you for one to enjoy that tasteless mush they called food there. Naruto chuckled. Oh never. I wouldn't dare touch that dirt. I have to make an appointment for an operation. I seem to have grown a rather attractive woman from my abdomen, and she doesn't look like she will detach herself anytime soon. Hinata was silent, but Naruto could feel the heat radiating from her face once his chest began to warm up. Kurenai just smiled at Naruto's sweet joke. I see. You have my sympathy, Naruto. I heard those growths are quite aggressive and tend to be quite costly, especially if that growth enjoys the sweet taste of cinnamon rolls. Hinata lifted her head to look at Naruto and did her best to make her eyes as large as possible. Hey, are we going to get cinnamon rolls? Naruto gasped. It speaks. Hinata pouted and detached herself and folded her arms across her chest. That isn't very nice, Naruto-kun. Kurenai and Naruto looked at each other and laughed, which seemed to irritate the Hyuga. What's so funny? Naruto stepped forward and hugged Hinata, planting a kiss on the top of her head. Forgive me, Hinata-chan, but your pouting was just too cute to take seriously. How about we go get you some of those cinnamon rolls, huh? Would you like to join us, Kurenai-sensei? Kurenai shook her head and mumbled something about weak-willed men. No thanks, Naruto. I appreciate the offer, but I don't think Hinata would be pleased with me if I accepted. I was going to ask you about your intentions towards her, but it looks like you are a happy couple already, and she looks to be in good hands, so that is unnecessary. Hinata blushed. Ayano we Naruto and we. Naruto chuckled. What she is trying to say is that we haven't really talked about being a couple yet, but he tilted Hinata's head up to meet his. I would like to be, if that's okay with you. Hinata's eyes half closed as a dreamy look came over her face. Really, are you sure you want to? Naruto nodded. Yes, I'm sure. When I came here today I was in a rather foul mood, but when you hugged me all those feelings disappeared, and a warm feeling rose from deep inside me and it made me happy. Hinata didn't want to hear any more, so she wrapped her arms around his neck and brought his face down to hers to meet in a kiss. She gradually got more and more into it when she felt Naruto start to return the feeling, but before it got too far they heard someone clear their throats, so they shot apart. Both of them were doing their best imitation of a tomato while Kurenai had an amused look on her face. Okay, well I'm going to leave before Hinata passes out on us. Make sure you don't do anything that would spread rumors, okay? Naruto bowed. Of course, Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai chuckled. Actually, that was aimed more towards Hinata. Just make sure you bring her to the Hyuga compound in an hour, she has personal training with her father. She turned around and walked away back with an arm raised in the air waving back at them. Naruto waited for her to leave and extended a hand towards Hinata. Well, I believe we have a lunch date to attend to, don't we? Hinata smiled and took his hand. I guess we do, don't we? The blonde took notice of the lack of stutter, but did not voice his thoughts. Naruto was standing several miles outside of Konoha, in a seemingly dead patch of land. This was one of the few places that he could train away from the unprying eyes of the Ambu. He gathered chakra in his body, and flashed through a set of hand seals. Mokuton, Shinrin Tanjo, Wood Release, Forest Birth. All around the blonde massive trees sprang into being, creating a forest from just simple chakra. All around him life sprang into being from the harsh ground. Next Naruto flashed through another set of hand seals and sent several orbs of chakra into the sky. Suetun, Idainako, Water Release, Great Rainfall. Dark heavy clouds filled the sky and soon a torrential downpour blanketed the entire area. Naruto held out his hand to feel the raindrops and looked up at the sky with a smile on his face. Jubi-sama, you said that I am tasked with keeping the peace of our world. Does that only pertain to humans? If I hadn't felt you just create a new habitat for the wildlife, I would be forced to take my powers back. To answer your question, no. Your duty is to all life on this planet, It just so happens that humans are the species that influences this world the most, and so require the most of your attention. Naruto nodded. I see, and I also had another question. What will your influence do to my progeny? Will they inherit your power too? Naruto could feel the smirk that spilled over the Jubi's face. Not even a week after our merge and you already have plans to bed someone? Naruto blushed. No. It isn't that, maybe in the future, but not now. I just want to be prepared for whatever may happen. I've always wanted a large family, and it looks like Hinata-chan wants to have a family with me too, so I just want to be prepared. You really are full of surprises. Most men would take to the carnal desires of the flesh as soon as an opportunity presents itself, but your restraint is admirable. In all honesty, I don't know what will happen once you pass on your genes. The last time it happened, it granted a dojutsu to one and gave the other a very strong spiritual connection to nature. The only thing I can tell you is that your children will be special, probably giving rise to very powerful individuals. Thank you, Jubi-sama, for your wisdom. I will let you return to your slumber. Naruto felt the presence of the Jubi recede back into its dormant state, and Naruto sat down on a large rock as the rain continued to pelt him. Naruto closed his eyes, imagining walking up to a large house on a warm summer day. Just as he would open the door, he would be assaulted by two children, possibly twins, one boy and one girl. Then he would see his eldest, hopefully male, holding his newborn and rocking it back and forth while feeding it. When Naruto finally got inside and greeted his children, his wife would round the corner and embrace Naruto in a loving kiss. He would have to be careful though, since she would just be showing the slight bump that indicated yet another child being nurtured in her womb. This would be Naruto's dream at night, one that he would fall asleep imagining and praying to whatever deity out there to wake up to. He had been alone his whole life, and had never known what it was like to be loved by family, so he had always craved to both receive and give that attention. Oh, how he always wanted family, but since no one was around to claim him as such, he decided to make his own with a beautiful and faithful wife. More and more Naruto became more comfortable seeing Hinata as that woman. Even from his limited time with her, he knew she was a kind soul, one that was sure to make a wonderful mother one day. The fact that she was attractive was an added bonus, but in all honesty, Naruto cared more for her personality than just her appearance. He knew firsthand that even those deemed unattractive were some of the most beautiful people on the inside. Naruto opened his eyes to be met with a raging rainstorm, one of his own creations. Naruto stood up with a renewed passion in his eyes and clenched his fist and declared to the heavens. When this world is free from the fear of war and conflict, I will achieve my dream. I will forge a future for myself and my family, or I will die trying. Yendi. Chapter 4. Naruto stood in the middle of the Konoha Stadium along with all the other genin teams who had managed to pass the second phase of the exam, along with Team 7, who had been put in by the council. The people in the stands were cheering for their favorite Chunin hopeful and placing wagers on who would make it to the later rounds. Naruto looked around and saw that many of the genin hopefuls had very excited expressions, some even looked smug. Of course, there was one blue-haired Hyuga who looked like she was about to faint from nervousness. Naruto calmly walked towards her and put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The girl flinched from the contact, but she visibly calmed when she saw who it was. Don't be so nervous, Hinata-chan. You only need to do your best, no one can ask any more than that. I know you will do great. Hinata smiled and nodded. Thank you, Naruto-kun. See, can you wait here with me? The blonde chuckled and took a step to her side while they waited. Several minutes later, the Hokage sent a large fireball screeching into the sky to get everyone's attention. When the crowd finally became silent, the Hokage cleared his voice and used a jutsu to make himself heard all throughout the stadium. People of Konoha and elsewhere in the elemental nations, welcome to the 183rd Chunin exams. There was another round of cheers before Hiruzen held up his hand to regain the silence. Now, usually we have a preliminary match to reduce the number of participants, but due to an unprecedented emergency we were forced to skip right to the last round of the exams. Below you see all the Chunin hopefuls, and right here today we will hold tournament-style fights until there is only one tournament champion. There was a huge chorus of cheering and applause that seemed to only grow louder as time went on. Naruto stole a glance at Hinata and saw that she was taking shallow breaths with wide eyes, the beginnings of a panic attack. Naruto took her hand in his and gave it a small squeeze, causing the girl to look up at him and calm down, if only a little. At this time, a man with a blue bandana tied around his head and a saban walked out onto the stadium floor and raised his voice so it would be heard over the crowd. My name is Shiraniginma, and I will be the proctor for this portion of the exams. Once again the crowd fell silent to hear the man's words. We will be holding individual battles where the participants have been chosen at random, and will advance via a bracket style. The contestants will fight and use any jutsu they possess, and the match will continue until one opponent forfeits, or is deemed unable to continue. Killing is frowned upon, but not grounds for disqualification. Now before we begin, is there anyone here who doesn't believe they will be able to participate? There was silence for a few seconds as the genin looked around for anyone who would leave. Slowly a boy with glasses and silver hair raised his arm. Yakushi Kabuto would like to forfeit. My chakra reserves aren't nearly large enough to be able to last that long. Ginma nodded and pointed towards the exit, and the boy walked out of the arena. Ginma turned to address the crowd again. Would Uzumaki Naruto and Akato Yora please stay down in the stadium while the rest of the genin please go to the observation balcony? The genin began to walk off, and just before Naruto was about to walk towards the center of the floor, he felt his hand yanked back and felt something soft and moist on his cheek. He suddenly realized that Hinata had just kissed him on the cheek. F for good luck. Naruto smiled and let her leave. He walked over to the proctor and faced down his opponent, who looked to be much older than the normal age of a genin. Genma looked at the two. Okay, put on a good show now, large turnout today. Hajime. The proctor jumped back and so did Yoroi, getting some room to prepare his strategy. He looked over at Naruto, who still remained in the same position with his arms down by his side, and scoffed. Are you so scared that you decided to just let me beat you to a pulp without putting up a fight? A good idea, maybe you aren't as stupid as you look. Naruto yawned. Forgive me, I thought this was a fight, not a bickering match. I do hope that spewing insults isn't your jutsu, or this match will indeed be quite boring. Yoroi growled and charged at the blonde. A blue aura surrounded Yoroi's hand, but Naruto had already felt him gathering chakra in his hands. He could feel jutsu Yoroi was going to use before he even began it, and so Naruto stood still and let his opponent come. Yoroi grabbed Naruto's head and began to drain out his chakra, all the while laughing. You fool! I'm going to drain every last bit of chakra you have. You should have kept your distance while you could, but it's too late now. Naruto folded his arms across his chest. Oh really? If you truly wish to drain me of my chakra, I hope you brought an army to do so, because I doubt you have the capacity to hold all of my chakra. The older man laughed. Don't think you can talk your way out of this one, boy. I've already won this. All of a sudden Yoroi fell to the ground, clutching his arm and screaming in pain. He began writhing around in the dirt, screaming for help to make the pain stop. Naruto chuckled and bent down to meet his opponent, placing his hand on his arm. Naruto's hand glowed the same pale blue as Yoroi's did earlier, and Naruto began pulling his chakra back into his system. This process only lasted for a few seconds before Yoroi finally calmed and stopped screaming bloody murder, and slipped into blissful unconsciousness. Naruto stood back up and shook his head. I was going to warn you, but you were insistent on jumping into the battle without hearing my warning. My chakra is quite volatile, and only those of my blood are capable of housing it. Anyone else will be ripped apart by the chakra. Naruto walked over towards the stairs to the observation balcony, leaving a stunned crowd. Genma regained his bearings and walked forward as a medical team rushed over to Yoroi's side. Winner by knockout, Uzumaki Naruto. Can Hyuga Niji and Uchiha Sasuke please come down to the stadium floor? The crowd erupted into a roar of cheers and applause, more over the anticipation of the second match than the result of the first. As Naruto was walking up the stairs, he passed by Niji, who didn't so much as give a glance towards Naruto on his way down. Sasuke, though, was waiting at the top of the stairs for his blonde teammate. Naruto tried to walk past him, but Sasuke put a hand on his shoulder and turned him around. What do you want, Uchiha? Sasuke glared at the blonde. Look, I'm sorry for the other day. I shouldn't have snapped like that, and I had no right to demand anything of you. Naruto narrowed his gaze. You're right, you didn't. Sasuke sighed. Look, I'm trying to apologize here. I'm not used to doing this kind of thing, I just don't want to drive away my only friend. Sasuke held out his hand towards Naruto. Friends? Naruto looked down at the outstretched appendage, then up at his raven-haired teammate. Naruto sighed and took the hand. Friends. Now go down there and win so I can kick your ass again. Sasuke smirked and began walking down the stairs. In your dreams, Dobe. Said Dobe shook his head and walked over to his Hyuga girlfriend, who hugged him tightly when he got closer. Congratulations, and Naruto-kun. That was amazing, why you didn't even do anything to him. At this time Kiba walked up with his hands in his jacket and Akamaru on his head. Yeah, what jutsu was that? You just stood there and a few seconds later he was on the ground screaming. Was it a genjutsu? Naruto chuckled and rubbed Hinata's back as he returned the embrace. No, his defeat was of his own making. He attempted to steal my chakra, but he discovered the hard way that anyone not of my blood who tries to integrate my chakra into their system will be torn asunder by its power. Kiba's eyes went wide and he gulped. Yikes, remind me never to ask for your chakra in the future. Naruto nodded and turned his attention to the stadium below. Will do, now let's pay attention to the fight below, it should be interesting. Hinata detached herself and put Naruto's arm around her shoulder as she watched the fight below. Niji and Sasuke were glaring at each other, the match having started just seconds earlier. Uchiha Sasuke. It will be great to prove the strength of the Hyuga clan against the last survivor. Sasuke smirked. Can it, Hyuga? It doesn't matter what kind of jutsu you throw at me, I'll always win. I'm an Uchiha. We were stronger than the Hyuga before, and we will be stronger again. Niji dropped into his Juken stance and activated his Byakugan. I don't know who this we you keep talking about is, but I will prove that the Byakugan is the superior dojutsu. Niji charged forward and sent 2 strikes at Sasuke's shoulder in hopes of shutting down his Tenketsu and disabling his arms. Sasuke flared his Sharingan to life just before Niji reached him and saw the chakra gathered at the tips of his fingers. Sasuke bent backwards at the waist to let Niji's attack pass harmlessly over him, while Sasuke dropped his right arm on the ground and used it as a pivot to try and kick Niji's abdomen. Niji saw the attack coming and grabbed the foot, twisting it and trying to break the Uchiha's ankle. Sasuke pushed off with his right arm in the direction Niji was twisting his foot and rotated with his leg, rendering Niji's movement useless while throwing another kick at Niji's face. The Hyuga was forced to jump back to avoid the hit, but not before closing 2 Tenketsu on Sasuke's foot that he was holding. Niji smirked as he watched Sasuke delicately put some weight on his foot, only to wince in pain. 2 down, 359 to go. Niji charged again, but Sasuke was more wary about letting him get within striking distance. Sasuke gathered chakra in his lungs and brought his right hand up to his mouth. Katan, Gokaki no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique. A fireball several meters in diameter roared to life and was sent towards the charging Hyuga. The fireball blinded Sasuke from the smirk that spilled across Niji's lips. Katen! The fireball engulfed the Hyuga, but as soon as it was upon him it burst apart, and in its place was a blue whirl of chakra. Sasuke's eyes went wide as he watched one of his prized clan jutsu get beaten like it was nothing. Sasuke saw the chakra begin to fade and Niji slowed to a stop. As soon as Niji got his bearings he charged again, this time Sasuke made sure to ready himself. If I let him close any more of my Tenketsu, it'll slow me down, and it'll just allow him to close more and more. I have to be careful. Niji and Sasuke traded blow after blow, and Sasuke used his Sharingan to predict where Niji was going to strike to knock his wrists away to prevent any damage. Left. Right. Shoulder. Arm, leg. Now. Sasuke planted a kick in Niji's gut, sending him careening across the dirt. The crowd cheered and people were screaming out for more. The Uchiha smirked when the Hyuga got out of the dirt and wiped a trickle of blood from his mouth. What's wrong, Niji? I thought you were going to prove which dojutsu was superior? Niji scowled and took several calming breaths. Your arrogance will cost you dearly, Uchiha. Sasuke chuckled. Hello Kettle, this is Pot. I'm Black. With a roar Niji charged towards Sasuke, the latter of whom smirked and got ready to counter the obvious attack. I knew it, rile them up a bit and the Hyuga's Juken is easily picked apart. Now I just need to. Is he smirking? Why would he shit? It's too late, Uchiha, you are within my range of deviation. Up in the stands, one Heishi Hyuga stared in disbelief as his nephew got into a signature stance of the main house. Impossible. A little girl with long brown hair looked up at her father. Toussaint, what's wrong? Heishi shook his head. Without any guidance, Niji was able to recreate one of the strongest moves of the main family. Watch closely, Hanabi, for I have never seen a Hyuga as gifted with the Byakugan as Niji is. Sasuke tried to jump back, but Niji was already on him. My only chance is to block as many of these as I can. Niji sent 2 strikes at his legs. 2 palms. Sasuke managed to block those 2. Good, I can still use my arms. Where is he going to hit next? Niji lunged at his legs, and Sasuke went to block those hits too. At the last second though, Niji twisted his body upwards and began assaulting Sasuke's arms again, and the Uchiha just wasn't fast enough to block the change. 4 palms. Sasuke winced in pain as he felt his arms go limp at his side. Not good at all. I have to get away before he does any more damage. Niji mentally smirked as if he was reading Sasuke's mind. I'm not letting you get away that easily. 8 palms. Niji struck Sasuke's legs, cementing him in place, and leaving the Uchiha at his mercy. 16 palms. Niji continued his barrage on Sasuke's chest, closing all Tenketsu around his lung. No more of those fireballs for you, trash. 32 palms. Sasuke was being hit like a ragdoll, not able to move or even scream out in pain, only grunt as foreign chakra was forced into his body. 64 palms. With an open palm strike to Sasuke's chest, Niji sent the Uchiha skidding across the ground, slamming into the wall. Sasuke lay on the ground motionless, and Niji was panting from the exertion. This is the reality we live in. The Byakugan is, and always will be, superior to the Sharingan. All of a sudden the Sasuke in the dirt exploded in a puff of smoke. Nanny! Niji saw a leg coming down from above, but he was too tired to dodge it. The attack sent Niji straight down into the dirt, where he bounced a little off the ground from the recoil. After Sasuke's kick landed, he jumped back into a stance, panting. Niji coughed up blood and tried to get back up, but he collapsed back on the ground. Genma walked forward, and saw the Hyuga couldn't last any longer. Hyuga Niji is unable to continue. Uchiha Sasuke is the victor. Will Tsuchi-kin and Haruno Sakura please come down to the stadium floor? A medic team came to retrieve Niji, but the Hyuga called out to Sasuke. Wait! How did you escape? I was sure that I had you. Sasuke scoffed. Kage Bunshin. I did a Kawarimi back when you were dispersing that Gokaku. When you hang out with someone who can literally make hundreds of clones of himself, you are sure to pick up a thing or two. Though my limit is only 1 or 2, I can still do the trick. Niji lowered his gaze and allowed himself to be put on a stretcher. I see I have failed the Hyuga as a branch member. Sasuke shook his head. Save the crap, Niji. It was a good fight, and you know it. If the dope was down here, he would be yelling his head off about not believing in that fate bullshit, and living your own life, and for once, I would have to agree with him. Sasuke walked over to the stairs just as Kin walked out. She sent him a sweet smile, but he ignored it. He was focused on his pink-haired teammate walking down the steps. Sakura, hold on a second. The girl had hearts in her eyes. What is it, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke put a hand on her shoulder and had a deadly serious look on his face. Listen to me. I'm not going to tell you not to fight that girl, but be careful. She won't have any problems killing you. Hell, she might even do it just for a laugh. If you find yourself in a corner, forfeit. It isn't worth your life. Sakura opened her mouth to argue, but the serious expression on Sasuke's face told her not to. Okay, Sasuke-kun. If I don't think I can win, I'll give up. Sasuke sighed a breath of relief. Good, I would hate to have to get used to another teammate. That would be such a pain in the ass. Sakura chuckled and walked down the stairs to begin her match. In the Kage box, the Kazekage was chuckling in amusement. That was certainly a great fight. I can't wait to see the Uchiha back in action against that mystery genin Uzumaki Naruto. That should be quite the fight, don't you think, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen nodded in agreement. You're correct, Kazekage-sama. It'll be a superb match indeed. Under the veil covering his face, the Kazekage was smirking. Yes, it should prove most enlightening. I am excited to see how far along my experiment has come. In the observation balcony, Hinata was looking sadly at the ground. So nice and lost. Naruto squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. He might have lost Hinata-chan, but he gained something far more valuable than a victory. He saw that his hatred and belief in fate can only take him so far in life, and I believe that his personality will take a turn for the better after this. Hinata looked up at Naruto with hopeful eyes. You really think so? The blonde nodded. I do. How about after the first round we go check up on him? Hinata smiled and nodded. How adorable. Naruto looked over his shoulder to see his teammate smirking while he heard an eep and felt something bury itself into his chest. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Sasuke, now she'll never come out. Might as well tell Gunma-san that she forfeits now. He felt something like a vibration on his chest that he could only assume was a giggle. Anyway, congratulations on that victory. Had Niji been just a little more observant, he would have noticed that you were hinged as a rock, but he was too overconfident in his victory and lost focus. Sasuke gave a chen and walked over to the side of the railing. So do you think she can win? Naruto looked over to see Sakura dodging several strikes from a smirking Kin. Sakura seemed to be out of breath while the other girl appeared to not have even broken a sweat. In all honesty, no. She will lose, but maybe that's for the best. Naruto saw out of the corner of his eye Sasuke glaring at him. You better elaborate a bit. Sure, she hasn't been the nicest person to you, but I thought you would be above petty grudges. Naruto shook his head. That isn't what I meant. I hope that after this defeat she will realize that the life of a kunoichi is just as hard as the life of a shinobi, and maybe then she'll start taking her training seriously. Naruto saw Sasuke's features visibly relax. Don't tell me you're starting to like her? Sasuke sent him yet another glare. That's none of your business. Naruto chuckled and looked back down over the railing to see Sakura on her hands and knees gasping for breath while her opponent taunted her. After a few more jeers, Sakura stood up and raised her hand in forfeit, and a medical team came to take her away to get her injuries checked. Genma made his way to the center of the ring. Will Sabaku no Gaara and Tsurugi Misumi please make their way to the center of the ring? Just then a swirl of sand appeared next to Genma, and Gaara appeared with a twisted grin on his face. Misumi walked over next to Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke and looked out of the balcony and saw the bloodthirsty killing intent coming off the genin and shouted down. No thanks, I like living. I forfeit. There was a chorus of boos that sprang forth from the crowd who were anticipating a good match after the beatdown they were forced to watch minutes before. Gaara looked up at his intended opponent. "Come down here, trash. I will have your blood or I will." Gaara stared wide-eyed at the blonde next to his opponent as his blue eyes shifted to a purple and a ripple-like pattern spread out around them and 3 Tomo appeared on the ring closest to the middle. Gaara didn't know who he was, but just staring in his eyes silenced the demon inside him, and it almost seemed like Shikaku was scared. Gaara shook his head, unused to the strange silence and looking around with very wide and frightened eyes. His gaze finally settled on the proctor next to him, who had been trying to get his attention the entire time. "If you don't leave the stadium right now, you will be disqualified and escorted out of the stadium." Gaara glared at the man and disappeared in a swirl of sand. Genma sighed. "Will King Utadosu and Rock Lee please make their way down to the stadium for their match?" A green blur rushed past them and landed on the dirt of the stadium floor. "YOSH. It is finally my time to show my skills." Up in the stands, an older lookalike stood up and flashed a thumbs up. "Show them the power of hard work, Lee." Lee saluted to the figure. "Hi, Guy-sensei." At this time, a boy wrapped up like a mummy exited the stairwell and walked out to the middle of the ring. Genma looked at both contestants to see if there were any second thoughts. There were none. "Hajime." Both opponents ran at each other with their fists cocked back ready to punch. Naruto, with Hinata in front of him cuddled under his chin, was watching the match start below when he felt a surge of chakra behind him and a hand on his shoulder. "Gaara, you will remove your hand or I will remove it for you. There will be no second warning." Naruto felt the hand leave his shoulder, but Gaara remained behind him. "What did you do?" Naruto looked over his shoulder with furrowed brows. "What are you talking about?" Gaara glared at the blonde. "I want to know what you did. I can't hear Shikaku anymore. He's still there, I can feel him, but it's like he's scared of you. He isn't whispering in my head anymore, and I want to know what you did." Naruto chuckled. "If we meet in the ring, I will tell you, otherwise just watch the matches proceed peacefully." The redhead glared for a few more seconds before walking away. Hinata looked up at Naruto. What was that, Naruto-kun?" Naruto shook his head. "I'll tell you when we go see Niji." Down below, Lee was on his knees, clutching his head in pain. As soon as he charged his opponent, he had flicked some kind of metal contraption on his arm, and then Lee's world went fuzzy. He felt like he had been kneed in the gut, but that didn't really hurt since he had undergone the most extreme training, but his head had a massive migraine. Lee managed to jump forward in a series of rolls on the ground to avoid being hit in the back of the head and possibly knocked out. Lee pushed himself off the ground and stood on shaky knees. "If I can proceed further, then I can prove that hard work pays off more than natural talent. I wanted to fight Niji, but if I can succeed against Sasuke, then my goal will still be realized." Dosu charged him again and again, but Lee was always one step ahead of him, and as time went on, his migraine lessened more and more. After a few minutes of dodging, Lee was finally back to normal. "That is quite the jutsu you use there. It seems you use sound waves to disorient your opponents by attacking their inner ear, then you go in for the kill." Dosu chuckled. "Very perceptive, but just because you know what it is doesn't mean you can counter it." The bandaged teen charged once again, bringing his right arm back to smash across his opponent's face. To his surprise, Lee disappeared from his vision, and the next thing Dosu felt was a sharp pain on the back of his neck before his eyes rolled up into his head and he collapsed onto the ground. Lee bowed to his down opponent. "A great fight, Dosu-san, but if I know that you have to touch your gauntlet before you can use your attack, then I can strike in the time where you are preparing." Genma walked into the middle of the ring while Dosu was being recovered by the medical team. "Winner by knockout, Rock Lee. Will Kankuro and Yamanaka Ino please come down to the stadium floor?" Up in the observation balcony, Kankuro laughed and made his way down the stairs while Ino looked unsure of herself. Shikamaru and Chuji were trying to reassure her, but she was still very pale with nervousness and fear. Naruto slipped from Hinata's grip and walked over to the blonde. He put a hand on her shoulder and she looked into his eyes. "Ino, I know we don't know each other very well, but the Ino I know wouldn't be intimidated by some weirdo who wears makeup. I can remember a girl from the academy who did whatever it took to reach her goals, even if that meant a little hard work, so go out there and kick that clown's ass." Ino smiled and nodded while wiping a stray tear from her eye. "Thanks, Naruto, that's just what I needed to hear." Naruto smiled as he watched Ino run down the stairs. He nodded at Shikamaru and Chuji, who gave a silent thank you back before he made his way over to the Hyuga princess. He wrapped his arms back around her, and she looked up at him with a giggle. "Should I be jealous?" Naruto smirked and looked down at the Hyuga. "I don't know, should you?" Hinata smiled and slapped his arm lightly, and then they both turned their attention down to the fight below. Ino was looking across from Kankuro, who wore a large smirk that screamed arrogance. Genma raised his hand and jumped back. "Hajime." Ino jumped back to get some room between herself and her opponent, waiting for him to make the first move and formulate a strategy accordingly. Kankuro scowled at the fact that he would have to go on the defensive. Shit, I don't want to have to reveal any more of Karasa's abilities than I have to. Let's see if I can settle this with just some taijutsu. I just hope she doesn't pull out any freaky jutsu. Kankuro charged at Ino, easily dodging the kunai she sloppily sent towards him. Heh, this might be easier than I thought. He managed to close the distance between them without too much difficulty since Ino hadn't put up much of a fight. He started to use the simple punches and kicks, trying to see if she was just toying with him and hide her skills. She wasn't. After several block strikes he caught her with a solid hit to the gut, forcing her to her knees. This is what the kunoichi of Konoha are like. This is pathetic. I know kids who aren't even shinobi yet who are stronger than you guys are. You leave shinobi have gotten soft in these times of peace. Ino glared at him and pulled out a kunai. Oh yeah. I'll show you soft. Kankuro jumped back just in case she had some trick hidden up her sleeve, but to his surprise all she did was cut off her hair. What the Kankuro burst out laughing uncontrollably. You decided to give yourself a haircut. This is great. Oh man, my sides hurt. I'll give it to you, it's certainly a creative jutsu. Who ever heard of a jutsu where someone laughs themselves to death? Ino glared at him and threw her hair up in the air, letting it settle around the arena between herself and her opponent. She gathered chakra in her body and sent it out towards her opponent. Chakra hair trap technique. Kankuro blinked. What the hell, I can't move. Heh, I guess you aren't so useless after all, but what now? Ino smirked. This. Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique. Ino projected her mind towards Kankuro, and once she had him she would force him to surrender the match. She knew she wasn't going to win with conventional methods, so she was going to give up at the next fight, but this guy insulted her one too many times. She thought she had the match won, but as soon as her technique reached Kankuro, it bounced right off, and it recoiled and she fell on her back while Kankuro laughed. Ino stood up on shaky legs, tired from using so much chakra so fast. What happened? I know that I had you. Kankuro smirked. Did you? All of a sudden the wrappings on Kankuro's back unraveled themselves and another Kankuro rolled onto the ground while the Kankuro Ino had been fighting started changing into what looked like a puppet. The puppet then launched itself at Ino, with its arms spread wide as blades appeared on the edges of the arms. Ino raised her arm frantically. I forfeit. The puppet stopped inches away from Ino's body, and she fell to the ground in shock from how close she had been to death. Kankuro brought Karasa back to him and proceeded to wrap it back up like a mummy. Genma walked out to the middle of the arena just as Kankuro walked back to the stairs to go back and rejoin the group. Winner by forfeit, Kankuro. Will the participants please clear the floor and can Inuzuka Kiba and Akimichi Chuji please make their way to the arena? Up in the Kage box the Kazakage was chuckling. I must say that the young Yamanaka's plan was indeed well thought out. It was just her bad luck that she had to face my son. The Hokage nodded in agreement. Indeed, it would seem that your son was the worst possible matchup for her, especially with him able to use the puppet to block any of her mind transfer techniques. Yes, well, let's see how this next match plays out. An Inuzuka versus an Akimichi? Two heavy hitters squaring off against each other should definitely prove to be an interesting match. Hiruzen looked over at the Kazakage with a calculating eye. Yes, it should be. Kiba and Chuji were smirking at each other. They had been friends in the academy, skipping class to get some food and then be reprimanded by Irika when they finally showed up with engorged stomachs were some of their fondest memories. Shikamaru would have gone with them, but he found it much easier to just sleep in class than spend the energy to skip. Kiba set Akamaru down beside him and fell into his clan's taijutsu stance. Let's have a good match at Chuji. The large boy only smiled and nodded. Genma jumped back to give the two boys room. Hajime. Kiba smirked and charged in without Akamaru, hoping to end the match before he had to hurt on of his friends. Chuji smirked. Buben Baika no Jutsu, partial multi-size technique. Kiba watched in amusement as he charged headfirst into his friend's expanding stomach. It enveloped him like a balloon, and Chuji arched his back and infused chakra into his stomach to repel Kiba back into the wall. All amusement drained from Kiba's face when he realized that he hit the far wall with enough force to drive the air from his lungs. Kiba fell to the dirt on his knees, and after a few moments he collected himself and regained his composure. Damn, Chuji, never expected you to throw your weight around literally. Chuji chuckled at his friend's joke. Good one, Kiba, now let's get serious. Kiba walked over to Akamaru's side and pet his dog. Look, Chuji, let's just use our best jutsu head on, and not drag this on. I know you don't want to hurt me, and I'm not too fond of the idea in fighting you either, so let's just throw whatever we have at each other and let whatever happens happen. The plump boy downed a green pill began to gather as much chakra as he could in his body. Sounds good to me, Just to be upset when you lose. Kiba smirked and took a pill out of his pocket and ate it, throwing an identical pill to Akamaru, who captured it in his mouth before swallowing it. They both burst with energy, so much so that Akamaru's fur gained a reddish tint. Jijin Bunshin, Beast Human Clone. Akamaru transformed into an exact copy of Kiba, both still overflowing with chakra. You ready, boy? Akamaru whimpered and looked at his partner with a concerned look while Kiba scratched the back of his head. Yeah, I know, but I think we can do it. Kiba closed his eyes in concentration. Have to make sure I get this right. Jinju Kambi Henge, Sotoro, Man-Beast Transformation Combo, Two-Headed Wolf. There was a puff of smoke from the stadium, and when the smoke cleared, a gigantic 2-story tall two-headed wolf appeared in all its snarling glory. We did it, boy. We actually did it. Take that, Hana, a whole 2 years earlier than you could. The large wolf turned its two heads towards the plump boy who hadn't moved from where he was standing earlier. All of a sudden, chakra exploded out from his body and began enveloping him, tendrils of chakra wrapping around his form. Chobaika no Jutsu, Super Multi-Size Technique. Chuji grew to unimaginable heights, towering over the double-headed wolf that once appeared massive. Kiba was mentally sweating. Oh man, Chuji's going all out here. Let's do this, boy, we can't disappoint. Kiba began rotating himself, picking up speed and creating small gusts of wind that seemed to tear apart the very floor of the arena. Chuji meanwhile withdrew his limbs and head, creating what resembled a human wrecking ball. He began spinning too, picking up speed and making a buffer of wind in front of him. Without warning, the two superpowers collided headfirst. Cho Nikuden Sasha, Superhuman Bullet Tank. Cho Garoga, Super Fang Wolf Fang. The force of the collision sent torrents of wind tearing into the crowd, causing the civilians to turn their untrained eyes away from the scene in front of them. Neither side gave an inch, each putting as much chakra and power into their attack as possible. The confrontation seemed to stretch on for an eternity, until finally, Kiba began to steadily lose ground. No! I'm not going down without a fight! With a surge of determination, he managed to press Chuji back to their original position, and he in turn steadily gained ground bit by bit. He tried to hold the pace, but he was drained from wasting too much chakra on his jutsu earlier, and began to succumb to the effects of exhaustion. He dropped the rotation, and was forced back, slamming into the far wall while Choji slowed his rotation down and began shrinking down to normal size. He too was reeling from the effects of the chakra pill he had taken earlier, and he knew that if Kiba had anything left then he was done for. Chuji lifted his head to see the double-headed wolf disappear, and Kiba and Akamaru popped back into existence, falling to the dirt below motionless. Chuji himself was doing everything he could to not collapse, holding his hands on his knees while sweat poured down his face. He swallowed the dry lump in his burning throat and tried to catch his haggard breath. Genma noticed the states of the two fighters and decided to intervene. Winner by knockout, Akimichi Chuji. The crowd erupted into a chorus of cheers louder than that given to Sasuke after his match. Everyone had adrenaline pumping through their system just watching those amazing heavy hitters collide head-on. Sure, they weren't the most subtle jutsu, but they definitely excited everyone. Kiba and Chuji were taken to the medical bay to have their injuries checked out, and their chakra pathways examined to ensure no lasting damage. Genma cleared his throat to overcome the loud cheers. Will Hyuga, Hinata, and Temari please make their way down to the stadium for their match? Hinata's eyes subconsciously went wide with fear when she heard her name called, especially when she had to fight an unknown kunoichi. She felt a reassuring squeeze on her shoulder and looked up into Naruto's large blue eyes. He gave her a quick peck on her forehead to distract her while he slipped something into her kunai pouch. Just do your best, Hinata-chan, and remember, no matter what happens down there I will always be proud of you. Hinata smiled and nodded, wriggling herself out of his grip and made her way towards the stairs. Naruto felt a presence behind him and saw a taller girl with her hair tied up in 4 pigtails smirking at him. I hope you said your goodbyes. It's nothing personal, but how about we make a deal? After I wipe the floor with her you take me out for a night on the town? Naruto shook his head. You assume she is just some pretty wallflower, but you are mistaken. While she is very beautiful, she is far from helpless, so you would do well to not underestimate her. The girl hemped and began walking away, but turned around when something grabbed her wrist. She looked back into large purple eyes with rings spreading out from the center with 3 tomo appearing on each ring. I won't tell you to hold back since that would be unfair to Hinata-chan, but if you hurt her unnecessarily, or do anything malicious to maim her, I'll make sure to personally make your life a living hell. Do I make myself clear? Temari visibly paled and nodded slowly, and when she blinked the blonde's eyes were back to their normal blue hue. Temari swallowed the lump in her throat and once again made her way back to the stadium floor. Naruto turned with a sigh to look down below as he saw Hinata making her way to the center of the arena floor. Sasuke let out a haggard breath and smacked Naruto on the back. Geez, that was intense. I swear I could have seen my breath there for a second. So what was with the theatrics back there? Naruto shrugged. I won't let anything ever happen to her, not when I finally found someone who accepts me for me. Temari was scowling at her blue-haired opponent, still somewhat shaken at what she just saw. That wasn't like any dojutsu I've ever seen. Is that what made Gaara calm down so much? It was like staring into a void, an endless abyss of raw power. Maybe that's what happened to Uzumaki's opponent. She barely even heard the start of the match, and she barely had time to dodge the 2 strikes aimed at her shoulders by her opponent. Shit! He was right, this chick is serious. Whatever, if I can get some distance she's finished. Temari jumped back and brought her large war fan out in front of her to block more jabs from her Hyuga opponent. She sent a chakra-infused gust of wind at her opponent, who managed to duck out of the way and rolled to the side out of its range. Not bad, girly, but giving me some breathing room was a really bad idea. You lost the match as soon as you backed off. She sent several more large gusts of wind tearing at Hinata, and she could do little more than try and get out their range, but she didn't come out unscathed. Small cuts littered her arms and legs, but fortunately they weren't anything that would inhibit Hinata from fighting. Temari settled into a defensive position behind her fan, watching her opponent for any slight movement. Dang, she's right. I never should have given her some room. I just need to figure out a way to get close again. She felt around in her weapons pouch for something, anything she could use. She felt something that wasn't in there when she packed it. They felt small and round, and when she took them out she smiled and cast a glance up at the observation balcony to see Naruto grinning back at her. In her hand were small smoke bombs with a very strong eye irritant mixed in that she recognized from one of Naruto's many pranks from his academy days. I have to be careful about how I go about this, or it could backfire on me. I guess it's ironic that I'm going to use something to disable her eyes while I have a dojutsu myself. Quick as she could, Hinata pulled a kunai out and threw it at her opponent. Just as Hinata predicted, she batted it away with a gust of wind from her fan that sent it down into the ground in front of her, but she didn't see the explosive tag attached. The tag went off and sent small chunks of earth every which way. This didn't harm Temari in any way, but it gave Hinata the momentary distraction she needed to send the small balls of smoke hurtling towards Temari with a quick flick of the wrist. Hinata was sure to jump up high before she threw them so the sun would be at her back, temporarily blinding Temari for a moment, and rendering the small smoke bombs near invisible, until they went off, that is. Temari's eyes widened as she found herself surrounded by smoke. What does she think she's doing? I'll just blow all this smoke away and then dash. She felt her eyes water, and she couldn't control the urge to wipe her eyes. She closed her fan and ran out of the smoke for fresh air, her throat burning from the irritant and her head spinning. Temari was blinking vigorously to clear the chemical from her eye, but her vision was blurry and tunneled. She never saw the blue blur rush behind her, but she definitely felt Hinata close to 2 tenketsu on her shoulders that controlled the chakra flow to her arms. Temari dropped her fan as her arms went limp, and she fell to her knees with Hinata's palm mere centimeters from the back of her skull. Genma jumped into the field. Temari is unable to continue. Winner, Hyuga Hinata! There was a loud chorus of cheers, but Hinata was only looking at one person, only his opinion mattered. Said blonde was grinning ear to ear, his eyes sparkling with pride. Hinata smiled and turned back to her opponent. Ayano, Temari-san? Would you like me to reopen your tenketsu for you? Temari's vision was just coming back to her, and she was half tempted to storm off in a pout, but the concern on the girl's face in front of her was genuine. With a sigh she answered. If you don't mind, I'm glad to see that there is at least one kunoichi in Konoha who takes her training seriously. Hinata simply replied with a smile, and sent chakra into the closed tenketsu yet again, forcing them open. Arigato Temari-san, and that was a great match. Temari stood up and rotated her arms. When she found them in working order again, she picked up her fan and strapped it to her back. I guess it was. See you around, girly. With a wave, Temari walked off to the regular stands while Hinata hurried off the field back up to the observation balcony. Genma waited for them to leave before announcing the next match. Will Naro Shikamaru and Abumizaka please make their way to the stadium floor, please? Hiruzen chuckled and looked over to a clearly upset Kazekage. Well, that was certainly unexpected. I thought for sure that young Hinata there was doomed, but it would seem that our number 1 most unpredictable ninja has rubbed off a bit on her. The Kazekage narrowed his gaze on the stadium below. I am inclined to agree, that move was quite unorthodox, though clearly effective. That showed great planning capabilities and ingenuity, traits rarely found nowadays. I only wish my daughter would have put up more of a fight. The Hokage shook his head. I think your daughter performed admirably. The Kazekage kept his glare focused on the ground. If you say so. Hinata ran up the stairs towards her destination, the arms of her blonde. Sure, they had been together for little more than a week, but it had been the best week of her life. Naruto had always treated her with respect, loyalty, and most of all, love. He hadn't said it, but she could see it in his eyes, the way he looked at her, the way he held her. It was magical, and it made every second together pure bliss. So when she reached the top of the stairs, nearly knocking over Shikamaru who was on his way down, and didn't see Naruto, she was obviously confused and hurt. She was sure he would be one of the first to congratulate her. She was delightfully surprised when two arms pulled her into a large huge from behind, gentle but firm. That was brilliant, Hinata-chan. I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. You showed everyone here that you are every bit the strong and dependable kunoichi I knew you were. But most of all, I think you proved that to yourself. His voice was so husky, and just made Hinata melt in his arms. She sighed and sank against him, closing her eyes partly, never wanting the moment to end. Hi. Naruto chuckled and walked them over to the balcony to watch the match below. The entire situation was troublesome. No, even that word wasn't strong enough to describe the situation. Shikamaru thought that he would stroll in, show off a few jutsu, use some effective strategy, then forfeit, but no, this Zaka guy had to come in full throttle. He seemed to shoot compressed air out of the tubes in his hands, a terrible matchup against someone who needed a few seconds to trap his enemies in a shadow binding method. It only took a minute more, a mere 60 seconds to come up with a strategy that would allow him to win, but it would take great timing. What's wrong, Nara? I thought you guys were supposed to be geniuses on the battlefield, but so far all you have managed to do is dance around like an idiot. Shikamaru shook his head. Man, this is gonna be such a drag. He threw several kunai at the ground in front of Zaku, who just stared at him with an amused grin. What is up with all you Konoha shinobi? Do they not teach you how to aim? I didn't even need to blast them away. Shikamaru just pointed down, and Zaku looked down to see explosive notes attached to the kunai. Shit! Luckily for Zaku, he had enough time to jump back against the wall before the notes had a chance to go off. Zaku looked up to see his opponent in a ram's seal, and he lifted his arms to create a defense against any jutsu he would throw out if need be. Only, that was his plan, but he currently couldn't move his arms. Scratch that, he couldn't move his entire body. Kagemain no jutsu, shadow imitation technique, successful. Zaku looked down, his eyes being the only thing he could move, and he saw a dark shadow extending around the outer wall and attaching itself to his own shadow. So those explosive notes were intentionally thrown to make me jump back into the shadow. I walked right into his own territory. Shikamaru smirked. I'm glad you figured out my plan. As terrible and hastily thrown together as it was no less effective. Zaku struggled against his bindings and glared at his opponent. So you have me caught, what now? I'm not going to forfeit, and the longer you drag this on the more chakra you waste. Shikamaru rubbed his chin, forcing Zaku to do the same. You're right. This is a race against time where you have the advantage. I can't really do anything that would make you forfeit, since I can't control what you say, but I can do this. Shikamaru bent backwards very abruptly, and brought his opponent with him. Where Shikamaru met air as he bent back, Zaku met the cold hard stone of the stadium wall, and was knocked out cold. Shikamaru released the jutsu, and let Zaku's body drop into the dirt. Make fun of me all you want, but don't ever bad talk my family and friends while I'm around, man, way too troublesome. Shikamaru put his hands behind his head and walked towards the stairs he came down from while a medical team retrieved Zaku's unconscious body for medical treatment. Ginma walked out to the middle of the field. Winner by knockout, Naresh Shikamaru. There was a decent-sized applause from those who were able to appreciate the cunning strategy displayed as opposed to the raw power that the others wanted. Ginma waited a few seconds before continuing. The last match of the first round will consist of Abirame Shino vs Tenten. Can the fighters please make their way down to the stadium? Not more than 5 minutes later, a stoic-looking boy with a high-collar coat and sunglasses was standing across from a girl with a Chinese-style shirt with her hair in buns that made her look like a panda. Hajime. And the proctor jumped back to give the fighters their space. Immediately the girl pulled out a scroll and channeled chakra through the ink, summoning a storm of kunai hurtling towards her opponent. Her aim was true, and many of the kunai found their mark on the boy, only for him to dissolve into a swarm of insects. I can never get used to Abirame and their weird bug jutsu. She ducked out of pure reflex as a fist sailed harmlessly over her. She ducked away from her opponent, and took several jumps back for room. With that move the match was decided. I would advise you to forfeit, Tenten-san. Tenten scoffed and pulled out another scroll. Please don't count your chickens before they hatch. You missed and I haven't even gotten started yet. She began channeling chakra through the scroll, but the weapons she summoned only traveled about halfway to their target before they lost velocity and fell to the stadium floor in large lumps of metal. Tenten looked back and forth between her scroll and her opponent. Nani? What's going on? Shino put his hands in his coat pockets. I told you, That match was already decided the moment you dodged my attack. I had already planted a female Kakacho on your body, and her release of pheromones allowed the males to swarm over you in a matter of moments undetected. If you do not forfeit, I will be forced to drain you of your chakra completely. Tenten scowled, but finally relented and raised her hand. Fine, I forfeit. Shino nodded, and a small mass of small bugs flew out of Tenten's clothes and retreated back into Shino's body. Genma walked forward into the middle of the stadium. Winner by forfeit, Abirame Shino. That concludes the first round of the Chunin exam finals. There will be a 1-hour intermission for the participants of the first round to replenish their chakra and rest to the best of their ability. Up in the balcony, Hinata, still in Naruto's arms, tilted her head up. Ayano Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled and turned around, walking towards the entrance to the stadium complex and leaving Hinata still at the railing. When he reached the entrance, he looked back over his shoulder with a grin. Well, are you coming, Hinata-chan? I thought we were going to go visit your cousin? Hinata squeaked and ran to his side to continue towards the medical bay. Naruto stole a glance over to his raven-haired teammate, who was smirking at Naruto, the unsaid message heavy in the air. 1 hour till out rematch. Yendi. Chapter 5. Naruto led Hinata down the hallway by her hand, towards the medical wing of the stadium to visit her cousin like he promised, though his mind was elsewhere. 59 minutes until I expose myself to the world. Naruto-kun? What's wrong? Naruto stopped walking and put on his best smile as he turned to his Hyuga princess. What do you mean, Hinata-chan? The girl withdrew her hand from his. I can tell when something is bothering you, Naruto-kun. Your smile might fool everyone else, but I can tell when it's fake and when it's genuine. Naruto sighed and took her hands in his. Nothing ever gets past you, does it, Hinaheim? Hinata blushed at her new, endearing nickname. No, it doesn't. Naruto got suddenly serious. I want you to promise me something, Hinata. I need you to promise me, for my own sanity. Hinata gulped. She had never seen Naruto so serious in his life. Okay, I'll promise. Naruto sighed. During my match, I am going to flush out a very large threat to the village, and I want you to go into hiding. I want you to stay somewhere safe, the safest place you can think of, and don't leave that spot with anyone until I come find you. Naruto could see fear and confusion spill across Hinata's eyes. But why? The blonde shook his head. Something very bad is about to happen in Konoha, and I can't let you get hurt. Please, just get anyone you can and stay somewhere safe and out of sight. Hinata wanted to argue the fact that she was a kunoichi, and far from helpless, but she knew that if he had to, he would take her somewhere with his kamiya if she wouldn't agree. She knew that he wanted her to make the decision herself, though to him there was only one decision to be made. Okay, Naruto-kun, as soon as Nijin is ready to move, I'll take him and hide somewhere safe. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and pulled her close into a warm kiss. It wasn't passionate or long, but it conveyed his feelings of gratitude effectively. Thank you. Now let's go see your cousin. Hinata could only nod. Naruto couldn't believe his eyes, which was a big deal to a person who was the reincarnation of a god. In front of him, on his hands and knees, was one of the most prideful men in the world, and he was begging for forgiveness. Naruto stole a glance to the cot Niji had been in only moments before and found a scroll that looked like it had been kept in a drawer for the better part of a decade, and the blonde could only assume that was the cause for the strange behavior. Gomen Hinata-sama. I have been a terrible person to you, blaming you for something you had as much control over as I did. I have failed you as both a cousin and a member of the Hyuga branch family. Can you ever forgive me of my past sins? A tear fell from Hinata's eyes and she wrapped her arms around her cousin, pulling him in for a tight hug. Oh, of course I can, Nijin. What is family for if not forgiveness? Naruto smiled at the touching scene before him, but he had a lot of work to do in the 45 minutes remaining. I'll let you two have a moment alone, I'll be right outside the door. He didn't wait for a response before he went outside the door and closed it behind him. He put his hands in a familiar hand seal and 4 Kage Bunshins came into being. I want you 4 to go to each of the 4 corners of the village, henged as civilians. Once they're secure the area of any suspicious individuals and create more Kage Bunshins, and repeat the process. I'll lock down the stadium, but I'll leave the rest of the village and the immediate vicinity to you. Understood? There were 4 highs and they all warped to their destinations via Kamui. Naruto looked out the window up at the sky. Today is the day I show the world that their actions have consequences. I will have to spill blood to achieve peace, but those who seek clemency shall be given it. Today is the day of reckoning. His musings were interrupted by the sliding of a door, and Hinata came walking out wiping a tear from her eye. Feel better? Hinata nodded with a smile and walked over to Naruto, hugging his torso. Better than ever. Naruto smiled and kissed the top of her head. I'm glad. Hinata, I've been meaning to ask you something important. She lifted her head off his shoulder and took a step back, not sure what to expect after his last question. What is it? Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well, since I have to leave the village and everything after this, I wanted to talk about us, specifically what we're going to do once it's time for me to leave. Hinata let out a sad sigh as her eyes began to tear up. Ever since Naruto explained his mission of peace would cause him to have to travel around the world, she expected something like this would happen. Just promise me that you won't forget about Enmi. Naruto looked confused. What? You thought I was no? Oh no, Naruto grabbed Hinata and brought her in for a fierce hug. Don't be silly, I was wondering if you would come with me. Her eyes shot open and she blinked several times before she started giggling. You want me to go with you? Just the two of us without anyone to interrupt us alone. Naruto had a concerned smile on his face, not sure of what to make of Hinata's giggling. Well, I know it's a lot to think about, having to leave your family for an indefinite period of time, though we would visit every now and then. Just think about it, okay? Hinata nodded. She hadn't even thought about leaving behind all her friends and family, especially now that her family was finally starting to come together. Okay, Naruto-kun, I'll think about it. The blonde smiled and gave her another quick kiss on the top of her head. That's all I ask for, and I'll support any decision you come to. Now be safe. He disappeared in a swirl, leaving no trace that he was ever there. Naruto materialized outside the hot springs located on the far side of the village. So, he isn't even watching the exams? The blonde looked around and saw a large man creeping behind a bush, a position that had an excellent vantage point to spy on whomever was unlucky enough to be in the hot springs at this time. Naruto walked up behind the man unnoticed. Jiraiya of the Sannin, I presume. The man flinched, but recognized that it was a male voice. He stood up slowly and began to turn to face Naruto. Look, buddy, I don't have time to babysit any brats today, so why don't you run along and... The old Sannin stopped and froze mid-sentence when he looked into the eyes of Naruto and saw blue fade to purple with rings spreading out from the middle of the eyes. Come now, Jiraiya, don't be rude. We have much to discuss. Genma stood in the middle of the arena once again. Unlike the first round, every single seat was taken, and there were even those who were sitting on railings or on stairs just to get a good seat. Citizens and shinobi of Konoha and beyond, welcome to the second round of the Chunin exams. The crowd went ballistic, yelling and cheering at the top of their lungs. It was a good while before it was actually quite enough for Genma to start talking again. The first match will be Uzumaki Naruto versus Uchiha Sasuke. Will those two competitors please come down to the arena floor so the match can proceed? In a swirl of leaves, Sasuke appeared with a smile on his face, anticipating his rematch. What happened next no one could explain. Naruto seemed to just materialize from the arena floor, as if he were transparent and faded through the floor like a ghost. Everyone blinked several times, trying to piece together what they just saw. Sasuke shook his head. Naruto. What kind of shunshin was that? Naruto just stared at him without a hint of interest. All will be explained soon, Sasuke. Before we begin, I would just like to apologize to you, Sasuke. You don't deserve what is going to happen. Proctor, has the match started yet? Genma adjusted the senbon as his mouth before lowering his hand. Hajime. Naruto assumed his same taijutsu stance as earlier, and Sasuke flared his Sharingan to life. This time Sasuke wasn't going to wait for Naruto to get ready. He charged the blonde as fast as he could. Sasuke jumped and went for a roundhouse kick with his right leg against Naruto's head, and just as he expected, Naruto blocked it by raising his arm. Gotcha. Sasuke dropped to the floor and kicked through Naruto's guard with his other leg, catching the blonde on the jaw and sending him skidding across the stadium floor. Naruto wiped a bit of blood from his mouth and grinned. Good kick, Sasuke, but don't get cocky just yet. Sasuke smirked and charged again. They traded blow after blow, each getting more than a few good hits in. They separated before long, and looked across the stadium at each other, panting slightly. Naruto brought his hands up into his signature hand seal. Well, I guess it's time to get serious. Tajikage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. Sasuke smirked when over 24 Narutos popped into existence. He eyed them carefully, and after some silent command they all charged. Sasuke's instincts made him duck, and he caught the fist of a shadow clone and threw him forward into another clone just in front of him. Sasuke jumped up and let several shadow clones collide with each other on the spot where he just was. The Uchiha took a deep breath. Katan Hozenka no Jutsu, fire style, art of the phoenix flower. A dozen fireballs were sent towards the mass of shadow clones and ignited them all in a vicious inferno. Sasuke landed on the floor of the stadium panting harder than before, and was pleased to see Naruto, the real Naruto, just as winded. They charged at each other again and began exchanging even more blows. Up in the stands people were staring wide-eyed, especially the contestants themselves. Shino and Shikamaru walked up to Hinata, who was standing at the railing, clutching the metal hard enough to turn her knuckles white. Shino put a hand on Hinata's shoulder to get her attention, and she nearly jumped out of her skin when she felt the contact. Hinata, what are you so nervous for? Hinata shook her head. Jigomen, I'm just as nervous for my fight as all. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes, knowing there was something she wasn't telling. He shook his head and dismissed it. Troublesome. Oh, Hinata, do you know what's going on down there? I can't seem to make heads or tails of it. I mean, it's obvious Naruto is up to something, but I just can't understand what he's doing. Hinata shook head. Gomen Shikamaru-san, but I can't say. It is Naruto-kun's place to tell everyone, but I think I know what his plan is. Shikamaru put his hands on the railing and looked down at the match below. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but they're just standing there doing nothing, and it looks like Sasuke is sweating up a storm. Hinata turned away from him so she wouldn't have to answer any more questions. Sasuke was finally gaining the upper hand. The fight had seemed like an eternity, and his limbs burned. His arms felt like they weighed several hundred pounds, and he was gasping for air. Naruto was in worse shape, and his exhaustion gave Sasuke the opening he needed to finish it. Just as he went in for the finishing strike, Naruto faded away like a specter. Sasuke collapsed on the ground gasping for air, slowly making his way up on shaking legs. He looked across the stadium floor to see Naruto, sitting there with his arms crossed and a bored look. The worst part was that he didn't look winded in the least bit. In fact, it looked like he had just been standing there the whole time. What did you do to me? Naruto sighed. I already apologized, Sasuke. You really don't deserve to be used this way, but there was no other choice. Sasuke glared at his opponent. What do you mean no other choice? Naruto gestured to the audience. You have just been introduced to Inton, in release, the origin of all genjutsu, used on the imagination to create form out of nothingness. To you, we have been fighting a vicious battle, one that would have happened had we fought no more than 2 weeks ago. To the rest of the world, we have been standing there while your body expended energy to supply that imaginary battle that you envisioned. There were gasps throughout the crowd, especially from the shinobi, who actually understood the full implications of what Naruto just said. According to him, he had full control over one of the most dangerous powers in existence, control over each of the senses to a point where the mind believed it was reality, and reacted as such. Naruto wasn't finished though, and he flashed through several hand signs. Mokuton Hijitsu, Jukai Koten, would release secret technique, birth of dense woodland. Sasuke was helpless against a massive tree that sprouted under him and gripped him in its branches as it grew upwards. Several shinobi were on their feet, ready to interfere if Naruto decided to go overboard, but soon the tree stopped growing, and Sasuke was merely suspended in the air as Naruto turned to face the crowd. Up in the Kage booth, a certain older Hokage was smirking under his hat. This should definitely be interesting. I hope you handle this with care, Naruto. To answer your questions, yes, I am able to wield the famous Mokuton bloodline of the Shodaime Hokage of the Senju clan. For your next question, no, I am not a Senju. I was born and raised in Uzumaki. The answer to the riddle takes me 11 days in the past, when I was captured and tortured by the traitorous Sannin Orochimaru. There were more gasps from the crowd, and there were several people glaring at Naruto, quick to associate the resident Jinchuriki with the largest traitor to the leaf since Madara. He forcibly experimented on me and forced foreign chakra into my system. This wasn't ordinary chakra, no, it was the physical manifestations of portions of the Biju, specifically numbers 1 through 8. Anyone else would have been ripped apart from that much raw volatile chakra forced into their body, but due to my Uzumaki heritage and my own status as the host to the Kyuubi no Kitsune, I was able to survive. Naruto heard several shouts and insults thrown his way, but he ignored them and pushed on. He needed to get this out. Meanwhile, the younger generation were still in shock from hearing that the young blonde was the host of the being that almost destroyed Konoha nearly 13 years back. Yes, for those of you who didn't know, as a newborn I was chosen by the Yondaime to house the Kyuubi, and he gave his life to seal the Kyuubi deep inside me where it would be forever imprisoned. There he would have stayed, trapped forever until I died, but Orochimaru tampered with the seal, and the Kyuubi changed when parts of the other Biju were introduced. He changed into the Jubi, the creator of this world and the source of all chakra. At this point there were people looking around in horror. Here the local pariah just informed them that he now held a being of even greater power than the Kyuubi, and he was granted powers beyond what anyone could ever hope for. I am not the first person to hold such an honor, no, there was one other before me. His name was Otsutsuki Hagoromo, better known as the Rikudo Sannin or the Sage of the Six Paths, the father of all jutsu and the savior of this world. I was chosen by the Jubi to be his reincarnation, the Nidaime Rikudo Sannin, the second coming of the Sage of the Six Paths. To enforce his point, he opened his eyes wide and channeled chakra into them. People gasped as they watched his eyes turn a dark violet color, and rings spread out across his entire eye. Finally 6 tomo appeared, 3 on each of the rings closest to the middle. Naruto pulled out a kunai and cut his palm. Everyone, even Sasuke, watched in fascination as a black substance oozed out of the wound and began forming into a shakujo, a Buddhist ringed staff used for prayer. I have accepted Hagoromo's mission as my own, and as such I will strive to create a world where peace and understanding are used instead of war and pain, or I will die trying. Naruto looked up to the observation balcony and locked eyes with Hinata, who had a small smile on her face. Naruto smiled back and nodded. Hinata nodded back and turned around to do as Naruto requested and find a place to hide until he came to get her. Naruto looked up to the Kage box and caught Hiruzen's gaze. Once again Naruto nodded and the aged Hokage nodded back. Suddenly the Kage box erupted in a massive explosion just as feathers began raining down on the entire crowd in the stadium. So it's begun. Naruto created a Kage Bunshin. Take Sasuke and put him somewhere safe, he is too exhausted to be of any help. The clone nodded and used his chakra to release Sasuke from his bindings, and despite his protests, ran off with him. Naruto slammed his staff into the ground so it stood upright and sat down cross-legged, closing his eyes and spreading out his chakra, releasing each person from the genjutsu cast on the stadium. He used his senses to pick out which were enemies and which were friendly shinobi, and those who were enemies he trapped in the illusion of Inton. As soon as the stadium was cleared, Naruto stood back up and grasped his staff, and it was at this point Kakashi landed right behind Naruto. Before he could speak, Naruto addressed him. I will answer your questions later, Hatake. Right now I have a Hokage, so save. I need you to help escort civilians to the shelters while my clones take care of the invasion. All around the stadium, explosions could be heard as fighting broke out all around the village. Several people began screaming in panic while some of the shinobi tried to direct them to the bunkers where they could take shelter. Kakashi opened his mouth to speak, but Naruto already jumped up and away, towards the room of a large building where a large purple barrier was forming. Outside the western wall, an Otojounin shinobi was impatiently waiting on confirmation of the summon that Orochimaru had ordered. What is taking so damn long? Several of the Suna Chunin huddled around a large ceiling matrix flinched, and the leader of the Suna team slowly lifted his head. And my apologies, but this summoned more chakra than we originally thought it would. Please just give us a little more time. The Otojounin narrowed his eyes at the man. You are already running on borrowed time. Lord Orochimaru doesn't take kindly to those who fail him. Your last leader found that out the hard way. The Suna man paled and went back to channeling chakra as fast as he could. Just as the Otojounin turned away, another Otonin jumped down next to him, cradling a broken arm and had blood running down his face. Hurry! You must finish the summon before he gets here. The Suna team saw the state of the man, and redoubled their efforts. The Otojounin helped the man sit down and gave him a solider pill. Calm down, Moro. What are you talking about? Finish before who gets here? The man identified as Wara swallowed the pill and took several calming breaths. We were waiting in the appropriate areas, disguised and waiting for the signal to begin the attack, but just before the signal was given we were suddenly surrounded on all sides. It was a slaughter, he was everywhere, and we never even stood a chance. I just barely managed to get away, but he isn't too far behind. And the worst part was his eyes, oh god, those eyes. The man started shaking and cradled his head in his hands. The Otojounin sat up and cursed. Shit, Orochimaru is going to be pissed. Orochimaru is the least of your problems right now. The Otojounin turned around to face the voice, and the last thing he saw before he fell unconscious were a pair of menacing purple eyes with rings. Hinata was running down the hallway with Niji's arm draped around her shoulder, propping him up. She felt a rumbling all around her, as what she could only assume was a massive battle took place all around her. See, come on Niji-Nizan, we need to get to the shelters before we run into the enemy. Niji tried his best to support himself on his own feet, but the strike from the Uchiha to the back of the head messed with his nervous system, and so he couldn't walk very fast. Gomen, Hinata-sama. Just go, I'll be fine on my own. I know the way there. Hinata shook her head. And no, I won't leave you to fend for yourself. Just as they were about to reach the end of the hallway, a figure appeared at the exit. Hinata came to a stop and she studied the new arrival. It was the same silver-haired teenager from the Chunin exams who gave up before the preliminaries, but the thing she was focused on was the sound note on his headband. The boy pushed up his glasses on his nose. Why, hello there, where are you off to in such a hurry? Come, stay a while, we have a lot to discuss. His hands went to his side and they were soon enveloped in a blue chakra aura. In the observation balcony, Temari and Kankuro were trying to convince their brother to run, or fight, or do something. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged as calm as could be in the middle of the floor. All the other contestants had long since fled, the Oto Ninkin having run off as soon as the fighting started, and the rest of the Konoha shinobi having run off to help with the evacuation or to fight their own battles. Temari was getting irritated quickly. Look! If you aren't going to fight then that's fine, I never liked this stupid invasion plan anyway, but at least we should go somewhere safe. The redhead shook his head. No, we will stay right here and not get in anyone's way. Kankuro tried to grab his brother to stand him up but was stopped with a glare from the redhead. Look, Gaara, it isn't safe right here. The boy in question shook his head once again. You're wrong, it is the safest for us right here. Isn't that right, father? And Naruto Kage Bunshin warped into being right in front of the trio with his dojutsu active. No, Gaara, Shikaku's father died a long time ago. I am only his reincarnation. But that doesn't mean we can't become friends. Gaara stood up and smiled. I don't know what you are, but for the first time in my life Shikaku isn't whispering in my ear, and I feel more at peace than I have in a long time. Naruto walked up to Gaara and put a hand on his head, and the redhead's eyes glazed over. I don't know what kind of pain you have gone through, Shikaku, but tormenting this poor child won't ease your agony. I want you let this boy be in peace, if not for me, then for your father's legacy I represent. There was no response, but Gaara collapsed onto the floor. Naruto looked at the boy, then at his siblings. Keep him safe, the invasion is almost over. Temari rushed to her brother's side as Naruto disappeared in a swirl. Naruto had made several Kage Bunshin sit atop random buildings and spread their chakra out across Konoha to watch the battle as it progressed, coordinating the mass of clones that were devastating the combined forces of Suna and Oto. When a clone stationed atop the Hokage Tower spread his senses across the stadium, his eyes widened when he saw a very sinister chakra rushing towards a very familiar presence. Oh no. He made a clone as fast as he could. Take my position. I have to dispel right now. He didn't leave any time for argument before he vanished in a puff of smoke, sending the message to all other clones across Konoha. Hinata was in grave danger. Naruto was currently dealing with the rest of the 4 Oto shinobi who were maintaining the large purple barrier before Naruto arrived and destroyed it. Inside, Jiraiya and the Sandaime were dealing with Orochimaru, and only him. He had tried to summon the previous Hokages to fight for him, but Naruto was able to stop him from desecrating the legacy of Konoha. Naruto had a large boy with orange hair on his knees gasping for breath next to the lifeless body of a blue-haired boy with 2 heads and another with 6 arms. There was a foul-mouthed redhead who was currently fighting Kakashi and the cat Anbu, and she was currently losing. It was at this point that Naruto received a vital piece of information, one that struck fear into his heart. Naruto made a clone, and before he had even given orders, the clone went back to finishing matters on the roof. Naruto locked on to his intended destination and gathered chakra into his eyes as fast as he could. Kamui. Hinata was trying everything in her power to stop the attacker in front of her, but the silver-haired man was just too fast, too strong, and had too many backup plans. She couldn't dodge his strikes forever, and Niji had been knocked out early on in the confrontation with a swift chop to the back of the head. It was clear that the boy's target was Hinata, and he was making sure to keep her alive. What's wrong? You showed much more fight back in the exams, so where did all that fiery passion go? Hinata ducked under a strike to her neck only to receive a kick that sent her skidding back along the floor. Why are you doing this? Kabuto laughed, and rushed in again. Simple, you are the only thing that Naruto cares about more than his mission for peace. To have that power over the reincarnation of the Rikudo Sannin is something Orochimaru-sama isn't going to let slip through his fingers easily. Plus, having an unsealed Byakugan doesn't hurt either. Kabuto managed to tap her left arm, severing the tendons and causing the arm to go limp. Hinata screamed out in pain, and tried to jump back to get some room, but Kabuto jumped forward with her. He reached forward with his arm to strike at her chest. This is going to hurt, but don't worry, it won't be anything permanent. Hinata closed her eyes. Please, anyone, help me. The pain never came, and after a few seconds she opened her eyes and saw her blonde savior holding Kabuto's wrist, and by the look on the boy's face, it was a very strong grip. Attacking Hinata-chan was one of the most idiotic things you could have done, but hurting her? That is something that will cost you dearly. Naruto increased the pressure on the wrist, and a loud crack sounded through the halls, followed by a hiss of pain from Kabuto. Naruto held on to the wrist and pulled the boy closer, kneeing him in the gut hard enough to make him spit up bile. Naruto let Kabuto fall to his knees gasping for air, but Naruto wasn't done yet. He gripped the boy's hair painfully, and pulled his head back so he looked directly into Naruto's eyes, and the last thing he saw were 9 tomos spinning wildly around the 3 rings closest to the center of Naruto's eye. Tsukuyomi. Naruto didn't even wait for Kabuto's body to hit the floor before he turned on his heel and scooped Hinata into his arms and set her gently to rest against the wall. Hinata was surprised to see tears forming in his eyes. Naruto knelt next to her and hugged her gently, burying his face in the crook of her neck. Oh Hinata, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have left you alone like that, it's all my fault that you got hurt. You could have been Okami. Hinata brought her good arm up and hugged back as best she could. It isn't your fault, Naruto-kun. Hinata felt the wetness on her neck, and she began to feel Naruto shake slightly. Is he crying? Naruto-kun? Naruto knelt back, wiping the tears from his eyes. Hinata, in those seconds when I sensed Kabuto attack you, I felt a fear I haven't felt since I was strapped down in Orochimaru's lab. No, even worse than that. This past week has shown me something that I have never had in my life, something I've only ever dreamed about: love. Hinata's eyes grew wide. Oh, Kami, is he? Whenever I'm with you, I feel a sense of wholeness, and the thought of losing that tears me in two. If I ever lost you, I don't think I could ever be the same again, because Hyuga Hinata, I love you. Naruto gently cupped her cheek and leaned forward, capturing her in a tender kiss. She responded in kind, and the two stayed that way for several seconds, but between them it felt like an eternity. After they finally broke apart, Naruto rested his forehead on hers, and just stared into her eyes. I'll go. Naruto leaned back and blinked. What? Hinata smiled and cupped his cheek. I said I'll go with you. I don't care where we go, or when we get back, but I know that I want to be with you. I can't wait, I need you to stay with me, but if that can happen, that I'll go with you. Besides, we'll fight off the other girls? Naruto grinned and leaned forward again. There will only ever be one woman for me. He closed the rest of the distance and kissed her again. They stayed that way until they heard a shifting behind them. They both turned towards the noise and saw Niji pushing himself up on his feet. Niji Nizin! Hinata tried to stand up and help him, but a firm hand held her to the ground. Hinata looked back at Naruto, who was shaking his head while standing up to his feet. Go ahead and rest, Hinata, I'll take care of you both. A Kage Bunshin poofed into existence and made its way over to Niji, surrounding its hands in a glowing green chakra. The real Naruto gently rested a hand on Hinata's shoulder, causing Hinata to flinch back from the pain. Then there was sudden relief when Naruto's hand was enveloped in a warm green aura. He severed several tendons in your shoulder, so it'll take me a few moments to reattach them. It might sting a bit. Hinata gritted her teeth as she felt her muscles crawl around under her skin. She fought off a sudden desire to scratch at her skin. It felt like an army of ants crawling around under her skin, but as soon as it appeared, it vanished. Hinata sighed as she reflexively rubbed her shoulder. Thank you, Naruto-kun. How is Niji Nizin? I'm fine, Uzumaki-san is quite the medic. I feel better than I did before my match. Thank you very much for protecting Hinata-sama, Uzumaki-san. I owe you a debt for keeping her safe. Naruto eyed the Hyuga, who was bowing to the pair of teens. Well, I'm glad your misguided animosity towards Hinata has been resolved. I'm glad I wasn't forced to take measures. Niji looked at the motionless body of the traitorous Kabuto and cringed. Yes, I have seen the idiocy of my ways and am glad to say that I have changed, hopefully for the better. Naruto helped Hinata up, putting her arm around his shoulder, and the Kage Bunshin from earlier grabbed Kabuto, disappearing in a swirling vortex. Hinata watched them leave and turned to the blonde. Naruto-kun, what did you do to him? Naruto took the girl's hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. I put him in a place where he won't be able to threaten anyone anytime soon. A place of my own making, so he won't be able to escape anytime soon. Suddenly a Kage Bunshin appeared in yet another vortex. The battle is over. There were no friendly casualties, and the only enemy losses were from those who refused to surrender. The real Naruto turned towards his clone and motioned him to help support Hinata. What of the snake? The Bunshin walked forward and put Hinata's arm on his shoulder. That is the only fight yet to be resolved. He has defeated several clones and is still fighting the Hokage and Jiraiya. The ANBU are staying out of the fight under direct order, but it looks like the two are tiring. Naruto ducked out from Hinata's arm and once again brought out his Shikujo, slamming it into the ground. He leaned forward and captured Hinata's lips yet again before he disappeared in a swirling vortex, leaving the Hyuga with her lips still pursed. Niji walked over to his cousin, holding out his hand to help steady her. Let's move, Hinata-sama. We should go to the compound before Hiashi-sama begins to worry. Niji turned his gaze to the Naruto Kage Bunshin, nodding the unseen question for immediate transport. Right before the clone brought them through space and time to their destination, there was only one thought that ran through the young girl's mind. Please be safe, Naruto-kun. Jiraiya was panting, out of breath and nearly out of chakra. When the hell did Orochimaru get so damn strong? Or am I just getting soft? I knew traveling through Udan no Kuni, land of noodles, was a bad idea. He barely had time to dodge as the sword of Kusanagi came flying overhead. Jiraiya ducked and watched it sail towards Hiruzen, who had henge, Kongonia, transform, adamantite staff, and was able to block it. The momentum sent the sandaime sailing across the roof, leaving Jiraiya out in the open. Orochimaru retracted his sword and lunged at Jiraiya. You have gotten weak, you fool, and now you will pay for getting in my way, along with that senile fucker you call a Hokage. Just as Jiraiya was about to be run through, there was a loud clank sound, and standing in front of the sandaime blocking the sword was Naruto with his Shikujo. So my experiment comes to show me the fruits it has borne? I will take great pleasure in showing you that your power can be taken away as easily as it has been given. Naruto looked as impassive as ever as he pushed Orochimaru back. You assume that my power was yours to give. All that I am now is a result of Jubi-sama deeming me worthy to hold the same position as Hagoromo-sama. You were just a bridge to that power, and for what it's worth, I thank you, but your sins have forced me to call for your death so that thousands of others may be saved. I hope you find peace in the next life. Orochimaru chuckled. Better brats than you have tried. JGI Jibaku, Binding Snake Glare Spell. 2 snakes shot towards Naruto, but were quickly beheaded by a quick flourish of Naruto's Shikujo. Orochimaru sked and sent several more snakes at Naruto. Siniai Tajashu, many hidden shadow snake hands. The blonde sighed and flashed through several sets of hand seals. Katon, Goryoka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. A dragon's head wreathed in flame consumed the snakes and bathed Orochimaru in fire. When the fire subsided, the body inside crumbled to dust, and another Orochimaru appeared from the roof. A Bunshin. It is sad to discover the great Orochimaru of the Sannin is really only a one-trick pony, just snakes, snakes, and more snakes. The Hibi Sannin usually didn't suffer insults to his ability, and this was such an instance. You insolent brat! I am the entire reason you are what you are. I brought you into this world. I gave you all the power you have now. I spent years researching how to mix the different chakras of the Biju, and don't you think for a second that I don't have plans to do so again. Naruto smirked. Well, thank you for confirming my suspicions. It saved me many months of searching the black market for information. Now that I know, I'm afraid I can't leave you alive. Naruto grabbed his staff and rushed forward, swinging his weapon too fast for the Sannin to dodge and severed him in half. Naruto jumped back and watched with disgust as the top half connected with the bottom half with a bridge of snakes. Orochimaru smirked. Nice try, but those 2 fools before tried the same thing. Orochimaru jumped forward and threw a punch at Naruto's face with his right hand, but the blonde knocked away the punch with the top of his left hand. Naruto brought his right fist and connected it with Orochimaru's gut, causing the snake Sannin to hiss in pain and jump away. Naruto held up his hand. Bansho Tenin, heavenly attraction of all of creation. Orochimaru could do little to stop his body from flying towards the blonde with his arms stretched out. Naruto grabbed Orochimaru's throat and held him in the air. Azura Path. 2 mechanical arms sprouted off of the arm holding Orochimaru up in the air. They grabbed Orochimaru's 2 arms to make sure he was unable to form any hand seals. Naruto gathered chakra in the palm of his hand holding Orochimaru up. This is the end, Orochimaru, goodbye. Anketsu, Darkness Hole. Orochimaru's face contorted in horror as he felt something heavy and strong emerge on his neck. It felt like it was a force, pulling him in on himself, as if it was sucking him into the singular point on his neck. Overall, it was a very painful process, and Orochimaru knew then and there that this was the end. He was going to die here, by an experiment gone rouge. No and no. I can't die here. I am immortal. Naruto scoffed, and continued to hold the man as he was sucked into the growing black vortex. No one is immortal, Orochimaru, not even me in all of my power. We are all doomed to mortality, but that is what makes life so special. The fact that death may occur at any second is what prompts us all to live every day to its fullest. It is a shame that you only found that out in the end. Among the mindless screams and pleads to let him go, Naruto honestly heard tones of regret, though he had no way of knowing if it was regret for his past actions or regret towards his imminent demise. It mattered little, since he was finally gone in the next few seconds, his entire being compressed and smashed in a space of infinite gravity that trapped time itself. Naruto dispelled the jutsu with a sigh, happy that the entire event was finally over. Jiraiya limped over to the blonde, rubbing his broken ribs. Thanks, Gaki. I don't think we would have survived if you hadn't showed up. I don't know how he got so powerful, but I'm glad that it's all finally over. Naruto sighed and picked up his staff. He has been augmenting his body with Biju chakra, giving him different abilities and enhancing his overall strength. He obtained a power that dwarfed even that of a Hokage, but against me it is useless. The power I have would never be his, and it would only be a matter of months before his body began tearing itself apart. Jiraiya nodded and went over to the downed unconscious Hokage and hefted him up on his shoulders. I'll take care of things from here on out, you go rest. We will meet in 3 days at the front gates just like we discussed. Naruto smiled. Indeed. You will need to rest up and heal if you are to accompany me. Oh, and before I forget, Hinata-chan is coming with us. Jiraiya got a lecherous grin. Oh? So your girlfriend is going to be coming with us, is she? I hope that is the only sense of coming that will be going on. Naruto narrowed his gaze. What we do in our private time is our business, and our business alone. If I even so much as sense your chakra signature anywhere near us if we get intimate, I will personally see to it that Orochimaru has a friend to share in the wonders of infinite gravity. Do I make myself clear? Jiraiya nodded his head nervously. Okay, geez, no need to go all Rikudo Sannin on me. I was just making a joke. Go meet with your girlfriend. I think I will have more than enough work to keep me busy. Naruto chuckled. That was our arrangement, Jiraiya. You would take care of the council and deal with any opposition to me leaving the village just as you have done in the past, and I will allow you to travel with us and train under me. The older man sighed. Yeah, it's just that I never thought I would ever subject myself to training under a gaki. Once again Naruto only chuckled. It is an honor to be trained by the Nidaime Rikudo Sannin. I know people who would quite literally give an arm and a leg to have an arrangement such as yours. Oh, and Jiraiya? The older man lipped up. What is a gaki? Naruto smirked. It's Gaki-sensei to you. Then the blonde disappeared in a swirling vortex, leaving two aged men standing alone on a roof. Oh dear lord, what have I gotten myself into? Yendi. What if Naruto betrayed in the forest of death? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.